Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? Well, that didn't work quite like I wanted it to, but welcome to my live stream Stardust on my for my Saw discussion with a couple of my YouTube friends. I'm going to introduce two of them right now, and we have our third guest coming in very shortly. He will be here very soon. First up, we have one of my very good longtime friends, John from Grande's Graveyard. Welcome, John.
Hey, Rainbow. Happy to be here. This is such an honor. I'm so stoked to talk all things Saw with you and the wonderful guests. So thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And next up, we have a new friend, Emma of the Impact, who is a host of the podcast Let Us In. Welcome, Emma. How are you?
I'm that high school dropout that looked like she'll pop out tonight. So I'm very good. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome. And you look absolutely amazing in your Elvira cosplay. Thank you for dressing up.
Yes, Billy. Any excuse to dress up. Any excuse.
Yes. Thank you. And we do have Knight from the Nightwatch Zone joining us as well. He will be here very soon. But first, while we let some people trickle into the chat, I wanted to talk about John's first and latest movie, his latest and very first movie that he wrote, directed, and produced. And it is called Down by the Bay. And he actually just posted it on YouTube on Friday the 13th. So if you are interested, please check this out. I just want to talk a little bit about it, the pre-production, production, post, just your experiences with this. So first, tell us a little bit about what the movie is about and then about the process.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Thank you so much for mentioning it. So basically how it came to be was I met this guy at a party and he does theater plays, like he directs theater plays. And he said, "Hey, you love horror movies. Did you ever think about making one?" And I said, I mean, of course I thought about it, but I never got, the chance to. I don't have the cast, the crew, all this stuff. And he was like, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you could pay actors, I know actors." And he's like, "Do you have anything you wrote?" And I write all the time. And I was like, "Yeah." So we kind of just put our heads together, a couple meetings, found a guy that did weddings to be the cinematographer. And we just sort of went there and shot it. And it basically tells the story of these kids around a campfire. And they tell this urban legend story of this girl that went missing down by the bay years and years ago, and they couldn't find her body or anything. All they found was a picture of a woman in yellow who was standing in the water. And one of the kids dares the other kid to go to the bay before sunrise. And of course, from there, the horror ensues. And it was a lot of fun to make. The cast and crew were just so nice and grateful. We did a premiere in the theater just a couple nights ago. It was so cool to have all their friends, family, and loved ones enjoy it along with us. And it was just one of the best nights of my life. Definitely the highlight of my year. And I had quite a year. So it definitely humbled. And it almost has 1,000 views already on YouTube. So I really do appreciate you bringing that up. And it was a blast to do. It really was.
Yeah, it was a really fun one. We had a little bit of humor in there. You built the atmosphere nicely. There was tension. And yeah, the campfire stories are just a classic way to start building that tension. And when you have actors who are delivering that story in such a honest yet creepy way. I forget his name, Marcus, I believe. The one who tells the story down by the bay just was a natural. And I just felt like I was right there with them, my friends, just roasting some marshmallows. And I got the visuals. And then when we get to the second half of the movie and we see the friend, trying to basically disprove this story, it just gets even more creepy. Was there a reason why you had her in yellow and the other color dresses that she's in?
There is. I don't want to give completely everything away, but there is a reason I picked, and there's certain other colors that proceeds that you see as it goes on. And that's like all the stuff that I want people to think about and ponder about, because I was always big on interpretation. I always wanted people to kind of, if 100 people watch a movie, they see it 100 different ways. That's really what I was going for with this. And I've had people, message me, text me, direct message me, whatever, be like, is this what you meant? Is this what you meant? And I'm like, it worked for the most part because people are speculating and pondering. And I'm like, that is exactly what I wanted. Do I know what it means? Yeah, I wrote it, but I don't want to give it away. I feel like people, it's so much more fun for them to speculate. But I'll tell you one thing, the actors, like you said, Moses, who tells the story, He was a great guy.
Yes,
He drove
yes.
all the way down from Albany to work
Oh,
with us.
wow, okay.
And he's a stage actor, fantastic guy. And I love how he just tells the story. Like, he was just so, when we were shooting it, I'm like, we got something here. And then, of course, the woman in yellow, I just thought she was so effectively creepy. And,
Oh,
I just
yeah.
loved working with everybody. They were so nice. And like, so many of them at the premiere were just so grateful. And they're, hey, if you work again, please call me. And that to me was the biggest like compliment I ever could have got. People, oh, it was great, or I loved it, and that's great too. But when you have somebody who comes up to you and says something they don't have to say, where it's like, hey, I want to work with you again, that I couldn't ask for anything more. I almost got emotional. I was like, oh my God, like this is
Oh,
so honoring and humbling. So yeah, the whole thing is just a lot of fun, and there is a lot of meanings. It's a big love letter for me. It does have a little bit of everything, like Rainbow said. It has some body horror in there, it has some humor, it has some jump scares, it has a little bit of everything. And I think the biggest thing was the horror of ignorance. I think that's my main thing with it, because the lead girl, I know
yeah.
better. She's eating a s'more around the campfire and she thinks she knows better. Just like the 500-pound guy that watches a football game every week. I would have caught it. Would you? Would you? Would it have slipped out of the Cheeto hand, or what? Would you really caught it? You big, that's a lot of
Yeah.
people think they know better about everything. So that's really the story I was trying to convey. Is like, you may think you know better, but until you're put into the situation, you don't know better. You don't know what you're going to do, and that's the beauty of horror in a lot of ways. And that's really the main like moral, I guess, if there was something in there that I was trying to tell. And I think it came across pretty good.
Yeah. So what made you want to produce your first movie? I know you said the producer, liked your script and just wanted to produce it and pay the actors, but what made you decide like, hey, I just want to make a movie?
Well, I always loved horror. I just do. And like, I knew I could pay people and I knew that I had ideas. It was just a matter of getting people. I think that was more like the casting director is so important, because otherwise it's just,
Yeah.
hey, my friends, A, B, C, and D. We asked my friends to be in it. That's, again, they're not actors. So these people were actually stage trained actors, and it shows. I think they all did such a wonderful
Yeah.
job. And, that was really, a big launch for me. I was like, if I ever do a horror movie, I really would want it to turn out good and not just, oh, he made it in his backyard for $5 and a handshake, So I knew I had the resources to do it. And I said, I want to pay everybody. I want to work with everybody. And honestly, it's been a dream. It's just a dream come true. I either wanted to be a filmmaker or, be famous on the radio somewhere someday. Those always my two dreams. And I got to do this, and it was a $1,400 production. And, that is a small price to pay,
Oh,
considering,
yeah.
the amount of wonderful people and experiences that I had with it. So honestly, just to make a dream come true. And I did. It was something else.
And I'm sure you'll continue that as well with another film in the future.
I'd love to, Rainbow. I have an idea. I guess I could tell you briefly the idea. So the idea is that
Uh-oh.
it would all be taking place in a laundromat. So you have these people go to a laundromat and they say, hey, I want the special menu, not the regular menu, special menu. Pull out the special menu, and it's this place where you can go and place hits on people. And in a way, all of it comes out in the wash. The blood, the guilt, all of it. It's all out of your hands. You pay the certain price, they'll get rid of whoever you want for you. And then, of course, what's behind that curtain? What is going on behind the scenes? And then, of course, curiosity tends to kill the cat. So people will go in there and, try to look at what's going on behind here. And then, of course, I had this whole wacky, fun, gory movie from there that I would love to do. But the amount that would cost me, oh my gosh, leasing a building alone, like a laundromat, I could not imagine what that will cost. So it's going to be a while, but I figured, for now, I enjoy this one. I'll save my money best I can and see if I get funding, because I would need actual funding for that. And it's like, it would be a feature, like this was just an 11-minute thing, but I would love to do it someday. But right now, just enjoying the good times,
Yeah, and that was a bit of a troll question because, when a great director, like say, for instance, Kevin, who just did Saw 10, he's got this great movie in theaters right now. And somebody's like, oh, so what are you going to do next? It's like, let me just enjoy the limelight of what's going on right now,
Yeah.
But I see you doing more and I'm excited for you to do more. So looking forward to it. Very cool.
Thank you. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Well, yes. And Emma, I know you just have a long list of things that you do. You do have your podcast, like I mentioned. You also do photography, and you just let me know also that you are going back to school, which is awesome. So let me know what you've got going on that you want my viewers to know about that they should be checking out, or any projects that you've been working on.
Right now I'm just really love talking about horror movies on the internet, and my podcast is a Let Us In podcast, and it's three of us. We do equal work, all of us. It's Crystal, Justine, and I, and I'm just keeping it pretty chill right now. I'm gonna turn up my moonlight. Give me a moment.
Oh,
My
yes,
light,
go
my
right
window's
ahead.
bothering me.
I'm gonna subscribe to you in the meantime. What do you have her
Yes.
link on this, DeRay?
It should be in the description, yeah, for the podcast channel. It
Gotcha.
should be in the description of this live stream. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and say hello to the chat. I see a new name in here. It is Castellar Daniel Garcia. Do either of y'all know who that might be?
He's definitely commented on my channel before.
Okay, hello, and welcome. They say, great weekend horror content in Dread Central's The Jester, Shudder's The Puppet Man, Netflix's The Conference, and The Fall of the House of Usher. I've been looking forward to checking out the Fall of the House of Usher, Mike Flanagan. That should be pretty awesome, and hearing good things about it. Mr. Frost, great Jeff Goldblum horror, awesome. I'm loving these suggestions. Thank you. Yes, original is what we are all craving right about now. What's up, guys? Welcome. Let's see here. Glad the Halloween and Friday the 13th franchises have a bright future with new content. Yes, I'm excited for those as well. Looks like it's pretty promising, especially the Halloween franchise. I've been enjoying those. I've liked the trilogy. I haven't had too much negative things to say about those, especially the last one. What else do they have to say? The Resurrected with Chris Sarandon is a good H.P. Lovecraft type film. Awesome. Thanks for that. I'm loving all these suggestions. Thank you, Daniel. All right, we've got King in the house. What up, King? Welcome Down by the Bay. Please check out his movie. I will also actually add that link to the short film in the description after we in the live stream. We've also got Jim KTV. This is a new viewer. Welcome. Fire. Thank you. All right. Well, hopefully Night will be here very soon, but we're going to go ahead and jump into the Saw discussion. So as you all know, or maybe you don't know, but a new Saw movie has just been released. And I mentioned in my latest review that they bumped up the release date by about a month. So it was supposed to come out in October like they typically do. So I had my whole Spooktober schedule building up to my review of the movie when it was going to be released. But then when it was bumped up, I was kind of disappointed because I was going to be out of town. So I wasn't going to be able to watch it when it immediately came out, which is why my review is over 2 weeks late. But we finally went back to the origins of the franchise because, as you all know, that really convoluted the story, different plot lines and timelines going on at the same time, things happening at the same time that we didn't know were happening at the same time. So it was a breath of fresh air to kind of take things to a more simpler time where we know exactly what's going on and there's kind of just one timeline happening. So that's Saw 10. But we're going to start back from the beginning and talk about Saw 1, just talk about things that we liked and disliked. You guys in the chat can let me know what you liked and disliked about each installment. And if you have a ranking, go ahead and share that. I won't be sharing my ranking right now because my ranking video will be released October 31st on Halloween. So I won't be sharing exactly where my movies lie on my ranking, but John and Emma and Knight, feel free to share where you place these movies if you have a ranking in mind at all. All right, so let's see. What does King Gore have to say? Dre, the title of the stream says, oh, it does? Okay. That's what I was wondering because I couldn't find Emma at first. Let me go ahead and fix this because that's not good. I got them switched up. Let's see here. Thank you for that, King. Let's see here in my YouTube studio. I wonder why it says that. Okay. All right. My apologies, y'all. Let me just do this real quick. I'm like, let me come up with something to not have dead air But at this moment, I don't care about dead air. Let me just fix this. So
Well,
that
I've
way
been
it's
having an
not.
interesting time researching the Saw films. I mean, if you, there's a lot of theologic analysis. I have one of two books, two that exist at least that that kind of put it in political and context, but also there's a lot of people that have written about not how it relates to like I'm not going to get into anything too serious, but I mean, they about like the story of Job and Abraham and being tested, but then other people go into the Soren Kierkegaard, who's like the father of existentialism, and part of the to be self-actualized is you have to suffer, then you have to make a choice. It's your choice. So there's a lot of really deep stuff that goes into this, and then you could just like also enjoy these as like, you know what? It's not that deep. I like to do both. I like to do both. And I like what you were
Yes.
saying about your movie, John. Is like you like for the audience to come up with their own interpretation. It reminded me of David Lynch in an interview when someone's like, "Will you explain that?" And he's like, no. You know?
I kind of did that to DeRay. She's like, why yellow? I'm like, no. Not really. There's so much. There actually is a reason, but I don't want to just say it because then everyone's like, okay, that's the reason. That takes the mystery. I don't want to ruin the fun, I guess. But at the same time, there's plenty of people that are like, I don't care. Really. I don't care what color she's in. Like, But yeah, no. For the Saw movies, I think they just came out right at the right time, right? Because 2000, I think the early 2000s was actually a really good time for the genre. You had Final Destination franchise that was, making all kinds of noise. And then Saw was really the little movie that could, in 2004, made for $1 million and then grosses over $100 million. It just seemed to strike a nerve, whether it be, the whole idea of the game and the characters and the whole ending, that twist ending that everybody, nobody sees that coming and everybody just remembers forever that great song of Hello Zepp. And I think it was a perfect example of a young and up and coming director who didn't have a lot of money, but he knew how to make noise, and James Wan and Leigh Whannell, who was a really, really good writer. And just all these things kind of came together. I think Saw in a lot of ways was lightning in a bottle, a similar way to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was just very lightning in a bottle. And then of course, what I think the smartest thing they did, and the reason this became $1 billion cash cow, is let's release them every year in October. That was the secret to Saw's success. If it's Halloween, it must be Saw. And even though I don't think Saw really goes with Halloween. It doesn't. Like, it's not spooky or scary or it's more, psychologically disturbing and then, physical torture, the torture movies, I guess.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily say Halloween, but they just knew how to market these movies. And man, after the first two, they were just off to the races. I think so. By Saw 3, you're making like $150+ million, maybe even more. I'm not sure if the Ray has the box office numbers up, but they just keep, more and more and more and more, and it just seemed to strike a nerve. And it's really cool. It's cool that that's pretty much the biggest franchise horror wise of this millennium. It's that and Final Destination, I would say. And I'm a pretty big fan. I know that they're not the greatest movies, but I enjoy them. Hey, Terry.
Hey, not the greatest movies. I beg to differ. No, it's interesting that and Chuck Closer, who I'm a fan of because he was the keyboardist for Nine Inch Nails for a long time. It's one of my favorite horror themes is Hello Zepp. Hello Mr. Hindle, as they called you at the hospital. Zepp. And that it's kind of kept that name throughout most of them. And it was really interesting watching the 10th one, which we'll get into talking to the 10th one when you guys when we get there, because most of these are through the early 2000s, and it was like this. There was the Patriot Act. There was everything going on with Guantanamo Bay, torture porn, things that 4chan was on the rise, being able to watch someone beheaded on the internet. And all this stuff, and a surveillance state, like all this stuff. And so I kind of the fact that these movies also became popular in that way, as a barometer for social anxieties, is really fascinating to me. And it also serves as escapism, I think, as well. I mean, it's relaxing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, they've all made millions of dollars. Like John said, some, made a little bit less than the others, but anybody involved, made millions. So yes, they kept going with it. And it was smart of them to do it every single year for the first 7 movies. Even though the timelines are all a bit wonky, it was good marketing on their point and just keeping us wanting more. And for me, they didn't really kind of go down in quality at all. They just kept pretty steady. I do like some more than the others, but the quality of the films were still there. And they wrote these scripts knowing that, or wanting to make movies after that. So they didn't like change things in the next movie to make it work for the next films. They had in mind this long saga that they just wanted to continue on with. And going back to what you were saying, Emma, he does have kind of this Kramer this God complex, and with his philosophy, it kind of mirrors a little bit of Eastern philosophy and Christianity, and he's kind of made his own religion with these cult members, all his different apprentices, and it's kind of cool seeing, who came when, and um, just their evolution as their own John disciple, because not all of them follow what he does. He doesn't ever really have, in my mind, a perfect disciple who, follows everything that he says to a T. They kind of all do their own thing. So let's go ahead and start with the first movie real quick. So the first movie, I was blown away by it. 2004. It only cost them $1 million to make it about, and in the box office it grossed $103 million, 0.9, so basically 104. And James Wan and his partner Lee Wanell, they had the script and people were just immediately interested in. They had also made it a short film, and the short film is really awesome and done really well. They even have the reverse bear trap, the original one that they didn't expect to be so realistic looking, but James Wan had a friend who was going to construct it for them, and they were expecting like cardboard and styrofoam and whatever else materials they were going to use, but it was a functional reverse bear trap made of steel and metal and all that, and it just worked really well for their short budget short film. And even in the short film, they had Billy the Puppet, which I'm dressed up as, if you haven't noticed, for that short film, was transferred over to the feature-length film. The production designer was like, well, you already made Billy. It looks great. It's creepy. That's what we're going to use. And so little did they know that, yeah, it was going to be as big as it was. I think they wrote the story, though, with the possibility of there being a sequel, possibly, but it wasn't in their mind or a hard plan. And so when we get to stories about Amanda and Hoffman, it's just really interesting how they were able to do the scripts the way that they did. And the ending of Saw is just one of the most memorable moments for me in film, not just in horror film. I did a little segment for Chris, aka Strange Monkey, and that was my pick as to like one of the most horrifying moments in horror for me is just seeing John Kramer get up off that ground out of his pool of blood and pull off his SFX, and Wanell's Adam, the character's face was just so perfect. That ending was just so slow and just so menacing that it gives me chills even now when I watch it. So yeah, that really left an impression in me in 2004 as a let's see, I had just graduated high school. So yeah, it got me really into the series with that start. Do you remember seeing the first movie for y'all's first time?
I do. I remember I was 7 years old, so my days of seeing R-rated movies in the theater was not there yet. I think It Follows was the first R-rated movie I saw legally in the theaters when I was of age to do it.
You're a baby, John. You're a baby.
I'm like the baby. I was a junior in high school. I'm like, you're the baby.
I remember it came to the Sci-Fi Channel, and when I looked into it, it was actually supposed to be a direct-to-Sci-Fi Channel movie. And then I think they must have been like, wow, we got something. Why don't we just give this a shot? And Lionsgate gave it the shot, and then holy moly, just created this, cash cow with it. But I saw it on television, and I was immediately hooked by the story. To me, it reminded me a lot of like Seven meets a straight up horror movie. And I thought, what a perfect marriage that is. And I loved the game. I loved the story. I loved the mystery, and the X marks the spot. And he doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet. I love that line. And I thought the whole movie was just so wonderfully done. Creepy, the saw puppet, which was his whole homage to Dario Argento and Profondo Rosso. And he showed that he had all this love for the genre in other places while being something completely original and new kid on the block to kind of make noise. And the movie, like I was saying before, it struck a nerve. I mean, I would love to know the theater reaction to that ending. Because I was on the couch. Yes. I was like, yo, what? Like, I remember I was like running around the living room as a kid. I was like, holy moly. I could not imagine that in the theater. If there was any movie that I could like be of age to have been in the theater, like for the first time, that would be one where I would be like, wow, this is just incredible. So yeah, that was my first initial viewing. And I still feel the same way. I think it's a perfect movie. The first two, I think, are perfection. I love the first two. I think Saw 1, though, was like the horror movie that needed to come out at the time, especially in the United States, because it struck a nerve. So I definitely am a big fan. But what do you think, Emma?
Oh, well, I unfortunately didn't see it in the theater. I saw it at home with my mother, and her review of the movie is, it took place in a dirty bathroom the whole time. Like, that was what bothered her the most. She's like, it was filthy. Filthy. I didn't expect. I didn't expect the ending either, and it was interesting. When you there's so many great actors in it. They were really, fanboying that they got Carrie Yules and they got Danny Glover in this movie, and it has a very Seven vibes, but also I had seen, because I'm older than you, all right? No, it's Cube. I always loved the Cube trilogy as well.
Yeah.
And I had heard the sensation a little bit before the movie itself. I had seen it like just after it came out, and you could rent it at Blockbuster. So I rented it at Blockbuster, and so I did know that like they're like, oh, it's so gross. Like even then, and now a lot of folks will say, well, it's actually there's really not that much gore in the first one, which is true, and it's really more of that psychological drama. And I became a fan ever since. I've been to the theater for all of them after that.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yes, very cool. Sorry, here I'm just looking at my StreamYard again. I feel like I just totally messed up my guilty pleasures stream that I have going on later on this evening, and it's just all a little bit wonky. So sorry that I keep being a little distracted, but yeah.
But I love how like as you said, I didn't know that it was an ode to that weird doll with the all eye
Dario
out from
Argento.
Deep Red.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was from Deep Red.
Me
it was
neither.
an ode to Deep Red, but I think part of it, like, do we see the pig mask in the first one?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Amanda in the closet gets Leonel, and in the garage, the parking garage.
In the okay, yeah. So I love how much of a diva John is. It's like expands throughout it. Like he's like, oh, I'm just giving them a choice, but I'm gonna wear like a robe, and I'm gonna make like 1,000 of these puppets. I just love his drama. I love it.
Yes. And like I was kind of telling Emma earlier before we went live, it's, even though for me, when I watch a movie like this or a movie like Pearl or something like that, I tend to be on the killer's side. Not to say that he's 100% right, but it's a different and fun perspective that I'm getting to view now from this man, and his reasoning kind of makes sense a little bit. I understand a person needing to appreciate their life and them having to go through something to sometimes start appreciating it, because not always people do, and they should, when they have a loving family, they even have money and a good job, but they're still taking advantage or not appreciating. And just that sentiment when watching the movie, when my mind's in the movie world, I'm Team Kramer for the most part. And getting into Saw 10, that we'll talk about soon too, like Saw 10 solidified me being team John Kramer. I totally feel for him. And in this first movie, you kind of feel bad for him because, yeah, he's um, uh, an older man, even though he's only 50, which is kind of crazy because you kind of feel like John should be a little bit older than in his mid 50s in these movies. But I guess cancer really ages a person. But yes, even though maybe these people don't necessarily deserve to die, I like seeing them in these predicaments. And when they can escape these traps, I'm like, okay, good for you. You deserve to live. And I hope you have this new lease on life, just kind of like John would probably be saying. So yeah, that's my reasoning for being a John Kramer fan, which some people would be like, no, he's just a straight up serial killer, murderer. He's a bad man. I'm on everybody else's side. Unfortunately, though, we have Tap and Sing, Danny Glover's character and his partner, who become his victims and probably obviously didn't deserve it. But you see John Kramer kind of reasoning, coming up with a good reason to have them be his victims and saying things like, oh, well, they're just too obsessed with their work and bringing down a killer, and that's their negative trait and what they need to overcome, even though that's their job and they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So in the first one, those are the first two murders where you're just kind of like, well, they didn't have to die, but for the sake of the movie, for the sake of a possible sequel, all right, they had to die, so I'll accept those two. Do you ever feel bad for any of their victims in
All the
Saw
time.
1?
That poor guy in the first
Everybody.
movie with the glass. Oh my god, that guy had no chance with the safe
yeah.
combination, and they put all the flammable jelly. That guy didn't have a
Oh
chance.
my god, the stress.
Yes.
Oh my god, because I'm a person that I don't in life, like, I know we're living within the world of the movies, right? Like, and it makes it more interesting for me to believe that John believes in his bullshit. It's like, sure, you're not a murderer. Sure you're not, John. Sure you're not. And but it makes it more interesting to talk about when you live in that world, because I had asked Rainbow Bright earlier, because some people, when they do a review of the Saw, they're like, for all you John Kramer stands, like, he's definitely, I've never seen anybody of course I live in my own bubble, right, that's ever really seriously thought John was a hero. It's just like living within the movie. It's just fun. Like, nobody thinks John Kramer isn't the murderer. He totally 1,000% is. But I feel bad for all of them, because I don't even believe in corporal punishment. So, like, and
Sure.
also it's judgy. Like, I know it goes into his past and all this, but it's still super judgy. Like, Amanda was just a drug addict. It's a mental illness. Like, who are you to judge, John? Who are you? God. I mean, you have, like, he has in some of the movies, into the flashbacks, he just has this weird thing of facial hair that's like this. Who are you to judge anybody? That is the worst facial hair in the world.
You don't like his
It's the
goatee.
worst. No, it's not even a full goatee. It's just like it's just what it's like. Like, you are not allowed to judge anyone when you do that with your face, and we have to look at it.
What's up, Mike? Welcome. He says, I definitely question what makes him feel so elite to Batman, around with to elite to Batman around with people's lives. It's always a thing I can't get away from. No, I feel that. Like, why are you so superior? And I think a lot of that comes from him being a civil engineer and making these buildings and trying to do like low income housing for people. Like, he's at first like a good person. He wants to give back to the people who are less fortunate. So he has some compassion. But then when he loses his son and he and Jill go through their divorce, something just clicks with him, and that compassion and whatever niceness he had in him is kind of morphed into this God complex thing. He's got his robe, and that kind of makes him look a bit of like a religious leader. So, and he falls in love with Jill too, because she's got this clinic whose, job is to help people overcome their drug addictions, and he's drawn to that. She's also a person who's helping the people. And so losing his child and losing her, he just kind of goes more into the dark side a little bit. And it's kind of unfortunate, because I would expect Jill to kind of have more of a role in some of the games in the franchise, but they broke up before he did his first game with Cecil. she wasn't really a supporter of it, but she also didn't, turn him into authorities or anything when she did find out that he was doing it. So I always wanted her to be a little bit more involved, but I do love her relationship with Hoffman when she finally, gets her, I guess, big part in the franchise. But yeah, he does think that his shit doesn't stink. Even if there's something he's done that is completely wrong and it's obviously wrong, he will never admit it. He will always be right in his mind.
What
So
was
moving on to
best?
Saw 2, you say that it's a perfect, or that's one of the perfect, or two of your favorite, I feel like, in the franchise, John. And I really love this one too, even though it was a 180, I feel like, almost from the first film, because we get now 8 people and it's more of like a social experiment now into seeing, who's going to do what to survive. So yes, give me your first thoughts on Saw 2.
Love Saw 2. I think it's the best of the sequels by a mile for me. I just
Oh, okay.
love the movie. I think it's really good. What they did was that they did what any good sequel would do, is just amp it up. Like, okay, with 2 people in a bathroom in the first movie, now we got 8 people in a house, and in 2 hours they'll die of the, poison that's coursing through their veins. But of course, you
Yes.
do still keep the mystery with the numbers are in the back of your mind, and their orders over the rainbow. So there we go, Rainbow Fright shout out there. I
Yeah.
thought the whole mystery was there again. You bring back Shawnee Smith, you bring in a Donnie Wahlberg, who's not like an A-list star or anything like Marky Mark, but he's a known actor. Enough people know him. And I like the back and forth between he and Tobin Bell. We really get to know Tobin Bell in this movie and the whole psychology of being Jigsaw. And I like their back and forth stuff. And I love the main game. It feels very much like an 80s slasher movie. I think that's why it works. Like, the characters are very generic. Like, you have the prostitute lady, you have, Xavier, who's the drug dealer. You have all these like very colorful, fun, over the top characters. And to me, it's like your classic slasher movie setup. And then as it plays out, I think you have wonderful twists and turns all along the way, and very memorable stuff like the needle pit. That everybody is freaked out by that. Like, there's nobody that sees
Yes.
that and is like, oh, this is nothing. Like, everybody just, they're like, whoa, like, they didn't do that,
Ugh.
did they? And the trouble that they went to do all that, to bring in Darren Bousman because he had a very similar script, and I thought he did a good job in the director's chair. Again, a young, hungry, up and coming guy that really wanted to do good, and it wasn't just a throwaway sequel. I think the twist at the end works. I think when I first saw it, I was very surprised and very looking forward to what they were going to do in the future. Granted, with the next movie, I don't know. I know that don't kill me with your pitchforks, but I don't really care where it goes after this.
Oh, what? No way!
Yeah,
I
we
have
might
so
debate
many
a little bit on
feelings.
Saw 3, but Saw 2 I think is wonderful. But please give me your thoughts on Saw 2, because I think it's awesome.
Well, Saw 2 is my favorite after Saw 6. And well, besides Saw 1. So Saw 2 is the first one we have a big group of people, and we don't have another big group until Saw 5. And because we have the trial of Jeff, the trial of Detective Riggs, we'll get into all those guys. I love how much John Kramer reminds me a little of the Crypt Keeper in this, in the sense that he kind of almost is making a pun. He's like, all you need to do is see your son, Detective Matthews, he's safe right here, and he's in the safe right there. All he has to do, but Donnie Wahlberg as Eric Matthews. I'm a Wahlberg playing somebody with unspeakable rage. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. No way. He's one of the most annoying characters to me, but I like that they keep him in because it's more intriguing to the story. And it's another great twist, as you had said before, and something interesting to Jigsaw that comes into it a little bit later in the movies is that even though us looking at him, he's like, oh, he's definitely got a god complex. He wants to be judge, jury, and executioner, but he hates people that do have a god complex, and he punishes those people. So anybody that when it comes to Hoffman later, or comes to Peterson, who's the insurance agent who decides who lives and who dies. So because John in his mind is he actually thinks, so this is a movie, you guys. Like, if it was real, it wouldn't be like this. It's just a movie. He really thinks that he's lending people the opportunity to better their lives. And this is Amanda's test, right? She I think I don't know if she exactly picked Eric Matthews, but how they're all connected. And he was like the officer that arrested her. This feels mostly like Amanda's big test, and then of course she gets another big test and another one. But he's really trying to give fruition to his disciples. As somebody is like, I'm not God. I just give people the opportunity to have their life in their hands. But then he wants to like some guys like Elon Musk, like I'm gonna have a bunch of kids, so I'll live forever. So he has to have these two disciples. And Shawnee Smith is a fan favorite. She's one of my favorites. James Wan had a little bit of a crush on her, and that's when we hired her for the first one, which is cute in a cute way. And it's really great when we finally get to see her. Really, she's back a few times, but she's not really back till 10. Satisfyingly. But it is one of the best ones. The second one for sure, and it has a good dynamic and good surprises. Love the group dynamic. We don't get it again for a while, but
yeah. Yeah, definitely loved having a group. This one cost $4 million and made 147 million at the box office. And this was the directorial debut, as John said, for Darren. He had actually just graduated film school 6 years prior and was struggling. And finally, apparently, he got a letter from his parents at like 25, 26 that said, okay, we're finally going to cut you off if you don't find a job within a year. So he's like, oh, I guess I better, direct Saw. So he got a fire under his ass and got this gig, good
That'll
for
do
him.
it.
Then
must be nice to have parents that can cut you off. God,
I know,
Yeah.
exactly.
That sounds kind of cushy, but he made a movie that's great.
He went to Full Sail University. You know how much it is a semester at Full Sail University? Like $40,000.
That's insane.
I want to go to Full Sail University since I'm a kid, but it's like, dude, $40,000. Like, unless your parents are wealthy, and he definitely has wealthy parents. If they said $40,000 for 4 years, that is crazy.
Yeah.
He put the work
But
in.
he kept John's vision, both of their visions, or James, I'm sorry, with the look and feel of the movie. We, of course, have the same cinematographer. David A. Armstrong was actually the cinematographer for films 1 through 7, which is why they are all pretty cohesive in that way. But yes, I loved the group dynamic, and I love, just multiple twists within the movie. And of course, like we've already said, Amanda is just awesome. A favorite. She does well in that needle pit. Her expressions are just absolutely perfect in that one. And Matthews, he's the perfect annoying person. You hear his voice and it's just a grinding noise in your ear because he's constantly
I just hear a dog bark.
And
Put him in his crate.
Full circle with the whole thing I was saying before about the horrors of ignorance. I think it applies to his character. The Carrie character, just play the game, just do it, just play his game. And it's just his impatience and I know better that ultimately cost him in the end. I mean, if all he had to do was sit there and talk to him, and his son would have popped out, Jigsaw goes to jail, and we all live happily ever after, probably. I mean,
But with that, it's so hard because it's like John tells Matthews they're in a room where they're breathing a chemical agent that could kill them in 2 hours. But sit here with me for 2 hours and they'll be fine. So it's like in his brain, how is he supposed to put that together?
It's fair.
That's his test. He had to just listen to everyone else, and instead, I'm Donnie. I know better. I'm gonna break your fingers and drive you there, and ended up, game over, slam the door on his ass. So I think it's a really smart movie. It's like it's such a good follow up to me, like because my sister, I remember she was around the age where this was. I think she was able to see it in the theater, and like I remember her coming home being like, that was such a good movie. And I was like, I can't wait till it comes on TV, and then I saw it and I was like, this is great, and you said $4 million for this movie was the budget, $1 million for the first movie. So that's $5 million. And this grosses 147. First one goes 103. That's $250 million against a $5 million budget. That is insane money, dude.
So it's like, make the budget bigger then. I mean, come on now. Give us more, a little bit.
They really should have, I think. But it's what Saw 3. Does Saw 3 have what, a $10 million budget?
10 million. Yeah. Yep.
We get more elaborate traps. That's for sure. And when it comes to the big contraptions,
Yeah.
I always remember the pig one, but you go first. So gross.
So then we move on to Saw 3, where Kramer is attempting to do a home brain surgery with Dr. Denlin and Amanda at his side, facilitating and helping. So, what were y'all's initial thoughts on Saw 3?
You want to go first, Emma? I feel like I went first last time, and I feel like you like this one.
Oh, yeah, I do. I have the popular opinion because it's just so true. Jeff is so this one's the trial of Jeff, and we don't know throughout the film that Jeff is the surgeon's wife who's taking care of John.
Right.
We don't know that's connected to the end. And he's trying. Look, I don't know what it's like to lose a child. I can imagine that grief, but like I think you can burn all your kids' stuffed animals so a guy can live and isn't covered in big debts. I mean, he takes his time. Like he's not even put in a trap, he's not even put in a trap. So he's not even going to be bodily injured through most of these traps. He has like one of the easiest times. Like he just has to, I'm not saying it's easy. Okay. But when it comes to human life, like I think most people naturally like, oh my God, I got to save this person. So Jeff, he's one of the most annoying characters as well for me. They get better for me down the road. And in Saw 2, they really set up a lot. So Saw 4 is happening at the same time. And so we come back to Saw 2 a lot because it really is, and Saw 3. Saw 3 and Saw 2, every film pretty much up to Saw 3D keep coming back to moments in that and adding it and like moving the screen back, like guess who also was there? Boom. It adds to the lore that way. And Saw 3, Jeff was he was so annoying. I love the ending though. I love seeing her head explode. That's cool. Amanda's failure is pretty sad. Like also thinking like Saw 10, again in Saw 6, there's a little addendum to it, but we'll get to the addendum later with the note that Hoffman leaves her that we don't know.
Yeah.
In Saw 3. We don't know. It's a little addendum. Fix it a little bit. Amanda fails him. She shoots the doctor because she's jealous. She's jelly, that John's paying attention to anybody else. Or at least that's what it seems like in this one. That's what it seems like the problem is. So she shoots the surgeon. Jeff sees it. He shoots Amanda. They're all doomed. They wouldn't have died. She failed her test. Miss Amanda Young.
Yes. It's so emotional. Everybody freaking dies in this one. It's so sad. But yes.
Jigsaw dies with a smile, though.
He does.
Jigsaw does what?
He's like, he dies with a smile. He's like,
oh, he does, yes.
Yeah, this is my, And then
he dies by the saw, too. He gets the saw to the throat.
That was a cool death, too.
Yes, it was. Yes.
I love
it would have been a tragedy if he died because of cancer. He couldn't have died because of cancer.
No,
that would have been
drama
stupid.
Queen. He can't die slowly of cancer.
Yeah.
Forget it. I mean, and I love the really corny flashbacks we see in his mind that's like it looks like they put like Vaseline on the lens of a beautiful, because we don't know it's his ex-wife. We can assume of her like running. I wish it was a beach because that's usually what they go with for like stereotypical, but it's a park. I'll count it. I'll allow it. So who's this mysterious much younger hot woman? Who is she?
I don't know how he got that woman. That's like
he's smart.
Unbelievable thing. Yeah, smart, but geez, I mean, what is the age difference there? He got to be
21 years. I looked up between the actors.
That's not as bad as I thought, to be honest, but she's beautiful. I remember her from cheerleader camp in like the 80s, and I believe she was married to one of the producers, so that's how she gets the role. They were like, hey, you want to just do a couple of scenes? You don't have to have any lines. And then by the time Saw 4, it's like, oh my God, we actually have to do something with her now. And then she becomes pretty vital character in the next 4 movies as Betsy Russell.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. Had they picked her because she did have some acting experience despite her not talking much, because did they plan on her talking later? It's just so lucky that she was a pretty good actress. Yeah, I always thought about that.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think being married to the producer is definitely what got. I think that makes sense. Like, it'd be like, okay, we need a pretty woman. Hey, call my wife. Like, I think that it's saving money too. Being the producer, like, hey, we don't have to pay her as much.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This movie for me is such a disappointment. I don't like. Okay, they bring back James Wan Lee Winnell to sort of like make it their own again, right? And I feel in a lot of ways I know this is never said or maybe never planned, but it feels like this could have been it. Because by the end of it, everyone's gone, like Saw
Yeah.
4 almost has to have the twist at the end of it takes place at the same time, and it has to add a new, person, and which I liked the Hoffman thing, even though everyone seems to hate his ass. I don't know why.
Oh, I hate him, but I love his character in the story. Like, I don't like his character. I hate his character. He's awful, but he's fun to watch. Like, he's a goon,
I love him. He's the most hated. Like I'm always
He
like
uses a woman as a human, a small petite woman as a human shield at one point.
He throws coffee
Yeah.
in somebody's face.
Yeah,
He's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
everyone
it's really
hates him. I don't know what that guy did.
I will say that it's really Saw 3D. Is it Saw 3D? Or yes, it's Saw 7, Saw 3D that I think went a little over the rails with his character, where he just like kills everybody, uses a woman as human
He's the
shield.
Terminator, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right for his character. I mean, yeah, he's a goon, but like somebody that would use a woman as a human shield, I think I have a little bit more faith in John than that, at least, I feel like they just went crazy with that. But anyway, Saw 3.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But back to this, and I appreciate that they came back and they wanted to end things right. And I do think that I really do. I think James Wan Lemonell, they thought this would be it. I think they thought trilogy, let's make our money, collect money, and get out of here. And I don't know, like on paper, it sounds interesting. Okay, the guy lost his son. And can he forgive those? Can he learn to forgive? I get it. I just don't know if it adapted too well. Like every single trap, it seems like they don't build enough tension. He doesn't really do anything till it's too late for almost all of them, right? Like the lady who's freezing, she's done by the time he decides to do anything. He's like a popsicle
Yeah.
with it.
I don't
He's
think
like,
she
oh,
could've
I've
saved
lost some
him.
skin on my face. I'm like, this poor lady's freezing. Her boobs are chattering
He
together.
doesn't even
and you
take
didn't
his
do
shirt
nothing?
off and put it on her. Nothing. Like he just
Nothing.
Yeah.
Put your jacket on. I don't know. I felt bad for that lady. She didn't. Oh my God. I don't know. Then the
He
guy,
put, like his clothes over the spurts a little bit. Like maybe they wouldn't. I don't know.
I think he was just so unlikable. And then of course you have the pig trap, which I know you said you liked. I think that is the dumbest trap.
I love it. It's so gross. I love gross.
Let's chop up a bunch of pigs on a judge because he's a pig. Oh, I just think it's too.
A pig is more of a cop thing. But it's just that
Well, I think
the larva. I love the larva, and I love watching them drop and him drop. I think it's great. I think it's a great one. I like it.
The
But
pig
that's
is
fine.
actually, I think, a representation of
Rebirth.
Year of Rebirth, because his philosophy, again, comes from Eastern philosophy a lot. And we learn more about this in the franchise. That's why I kind of think this more because, he kidnaps Cecil during the celebration of the year of, what's the Chinese New Year. And it was the year of rebirth. Yeah, Year of the Pig. Yes. And I think, he's just in a disgusting way, like forcing rebirth onto the judge and Jeff. But yes, the pig does become a representation of cops for sure in Spiral, 100%.
Sure, yeah. Like I don't know. I didn't think that worked. And then the rack, I know everyone's, it's such a cool trap. That's such a brutal trap. I didn't feel the tension. I felt.
Come on, John.
I didn't. I really didn't.
Cracking.
Bones are sticking out.
It was an accident. I love how cheesy the way the kid dies too. It's like the middle of the day and he's like going on a tricycle in the street. Like that is such a yeah, that's how it happens. Like it's just like the first idea that went in your head. Like that's how a kid dies, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I felt that aspect didn't work. What does work? A few things. I love the throwback to them setting up the first movie. I thought that was really cool. That's the best scene in the movie to me. And then I know a lot of people, they like that Amanda was being tested and can she figure it out? Can she do it? I didn't like what they did with her character. Like, I felt it was such a betrayal of, in Saw 2, she's on top of the world at the end, game over, I'm learning from him, I'm going to take it over. By this movie, she hits rock bottom and gets shot in the neck. Like, I just felt it was such a betrayal of her character overcoming the drug addiction and being able to follow in his shoes. But I guess they decided to go more tragic with it. And in steps Hoffman for the next few movies. But I don't know. I feel like they wrote themselves into a corner. Like, I just feel like that's kind of what they did here. And I don't know. I just never care for this one that much. I think it's kind of a blah sequel, but I know a lot of people say it's the best one. So I don't know. Maybe it's
I
just
like
me.
I see I agree with you with Amanda. It's sad to see her go like that, but it does make sense because I think maybe the audience feels that way as well, and maybe she speaks for them for it to make it work somehow. Is because she said she went back to when she went back to clean up after the Eric Matthews thing from the second movie, and he's still alive and he's attacking her. She's like, he didn't change. They don't change. It doesn't work, and that probably is true for the most part. They don't change if they not, especially not everyone changes. The way John hopes they would, and that's when we get a first little hint. That's when they start hinting to other movies, which I haven't seen other movies of franchise do this like Saw does, where Jigsaw's like, yes, Detective Eric Matthews, you made a mess of that. I cleaned it up, and we're like, what does that mean? But we kind of forget it because it's like a lot of other stuff is happening, but we find out in the next one.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this could have just been a good little trilogy wrap up. I loved 3. I'd probably tie it with part 2. But it is sad to see Amanda come to her demise, but again, she wasn't following the rules of the game. She was just failing despite overcoming her drug addiction. She was supposed to have been like the test subject to show that it actually works, that these traps and games actually work, and she's just going against the grain when it comes to John's teachings. And so it's almost fitting that she does die, because if she doesn't have John, it almost seems like she doesn't really have anything else to live for, and she gets to die with her father figure. So go let them be off in the sunset together. Why not? Because she was probably going to do something not good anyways. If John died and she stayed alive, she was going to continue doing things in the wrong way anyway, kind of like how Hoffman ends up doing.
Creating traps that were unbeatable.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Saw 4, which is also directed by Darren Bozeman. It cost $10 million to make, and it grossed $165 million. And again, we have David A. Armstrong writing. And for me, this one is probably not my favorite, because we have Rig at the center of the movie this time, who has just lost Carrie, and he's just kind of getting into a depressed mode. And I feel like the reason for his test is kind of just boring for me. Him just being too good at
your job. God.
Yeah, like
go with your wife.
See,
I thought he's just had to get in the car with his wife. He would have won.
I thought what they were going to do is, like, the more time he took trying to save the other ones would take less time from, like, the final trap, which was going to be, like, to save his wife. But no, they didn't do that. But
I'm glad they didn't do that.
Much better than Jeff, though, because he's trying to save people. So much more likable character. But yeah, it's a bullshit reason.
I actually thought this one was a bounce back. I thought the third one lost its footing because the whole idea of the first, you have to save yourself. That was the whole thing. And then Saw 3, it's, oh, can he forgive you? Will he save you? The 3 people in the traps in the main game, they don't have a chance to save themselves. I don't think that played in the whole Saw thing, even though it's written by Juan and Winnell, who created it. This, I liked the whole, they had to save themselves. You have to save yourself no matter what. So that's back to the theory of it. They bring in a bunch of new writers who I know a lot of people didn't like, Marcus Dunstan, and I don't know, I think it was like a trio that did this one. Marcus Dunstan being the main one. He did The Collector.
Patrick Melton and Thomas Fenton.
That's right. So he did The Collector and The Collection, which are good movies in their own right. I really like those. I thought they did a really good job considering the writing of Saw 3, just putting them in a corner. Now it's okay. It's going to be simultaneous to part 3. And I agree, Rig does not deserve to be in this game at all. And I think that's almost the point. He's like, you just had to do nothing. That was your game, And he, True. Of course, being a hero. I like Lyric Bent as Brig. I think he's one of the more interesting protagonists in the series. He's definitely, I would say, the most likable because he doesn't belong in the game, really. He's the most, I would say, the most likable protagonist in any Saw movie. I would say him. Because he really does just want to do well and save everybody. But, of course, Jigsaw logic, it's not the right thing to do. Don't kick down the unsecured door, whatever the hell. I like the traps here a lot better. The see no evil, hear no evil trap worked. I
Oh,
thought
yes.
the ladies, I don't have long hair, but I'm pretty sure that scalping trap for anyone with long hair would be pretty horrifying. Am I wrong?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Yes. No.
I like the serial
Terrible.
killer guy he killed. I like when it has all the evidence around the guy that when it's interesting
Oh,
because this is the
the
first time that they did at the motel that it comes out into the real world. Like it's not happening in this industrial. He's like out and he goes in
yeah,
and so that the guy's
the
eyes are going to be
predator
gouged
guy.
out or he gets pulled apart and he gets pulled
That was my
apart. I
favorite
like
trap for
that
sure.
was my
The
favorite one
eye.
too.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, the traps
Yes.
worked here, and I liked the whole main, like the production design of the finale shots with like Hoffman on the block of, I'm sorry, Hoffman in the chair, and then Donnie Wahlberg on the ice. Like I thought that was good, and
I
I think
loved
the
his head
best,
getting squashed.
yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
dude, I loved that. I wish that would happen to Donnie Wahlberg. I'm just kidding, but the flashback stuff in this, I love. I love the flat with him losing the kid and falling in love with her, and like the whole origin story as to how he became Jigsaw. I think that's the reason to watch Saw 4, and I would say it's the best sequel after Part 2 for me. I like that stuff. I think that stuff makes the movie. It does have issues. It's not great. It's not perfect, but I think it's a passable sequel considering where they were after Part 3. It's amazing to me what they came out with. But this one seems to be lesser liked. Like the next 4 seem to be kind of, people don't really dig them. I think this is one of the better ones though for me.
I feel
Yeah, I
like
think
4
you're
and
right.
5 go together as one, and this is the one
Mhm.
I like Hoffman as a character, but I don't like his character, if that makes sense. Because this is when we see him, it's flashback to the third one when he has the driver that killed Jeff's kid in like this big wheelbarrow and he just dumps him on the floor. And the guy's a big dude. And he's like,
Yeah.
and John's like, that's a human being. This, you know, um, so as we kind of see like, and that's when we first see Hoffman in the fourth one. We see Hoffman and Amanda in the flashback scenes and how they're like, has got this brother and sister are like, Daddy loves me more, kind of rivalry that I like. And I hadn't seen Saw 4 in a long time. I watched it for this, and I was struggling for the longest time. And one character that felt so unnecessary, and they never mention him again, is the lawyer Art. And I got 3 guys mixed up. I got Hoffman mixed up, and less this time because I've seen it before. But Hoffman, Art the lawyer, and Strom. It's like, why do they all look alike? Why did they?
Why
Why
does
do
why
all?
does Hoffman and Strom look so like why do they look alike? Why are they brothers? Why are they twins? I hate that so much. Because it kind of did that with Perez and Carrie too. Like Perez was kind of like the brown version of Carrie in a way. And I'm like, they
Curly
replaced these
hair,
two with these two. I'm like, why? Why?
I like that I kept Perez for quite a while, but then just to be shot by Hoffman in the Saw 3D. But I'm like, okay, well, you brought it back for
Yeah.
what? Poor thing.
Yes. And the thing is with Strom is that he sucks too. Like he's also just not a good guy, And so we have bad versus bad. And so we don't really have
He's not a bad
anybody to
dude.
root for. Isn't he corrupt? Strom is a bit
No,
corrupt.
no, he's. I don't remember him being corrupt because
Nah,
Strom, he's like, yeah, and I think it's.
He's not
We're kind of
great
only the fourth
because he
one.
breaks the rules. He doesn't always follow the rules. He puts other people in danger. Like when he rushes into buildings and things when he's not supposed to, he goes
that's
against
Rig.
the grain a little bit.
That Rig's the one
Ah,
that rushed into the building.
yeah, that part too. But I know Strom also is not
Strom breaks his
great.
arm. I don't know about rules, but he breaks his damn arm by the end of Saw 5.
So what happens to Strom
Yeah.
is like at the end of Saw 4 is when he reaches the scene that is the end of Saw 3. And then he gets caught in there. And it seemed like to me that him and Hoffman had seen each other, but I guess not. And Hoffman locks him in there, and it's going to be his, and he's supposed to die because what's supposed to ultimately happen in the Gideon factory, right, is that Hoffman's supposed to be the only survivor with Jeff's little girl and be the big
Right.
hero, and Strom lives because he's a badass. And like I think we see in the beginning of the first one when he just like puts it right in his neck and he survives. And I will say at the end of the 5th one, so I'm kind of a nerd in a way. So I live in fan fiction worlds and stuff like that sometimes, and I was thinking, you know what? They're kind of annoying, but Strom and Hoffman, and I mean this with all respect, would be really cute together. Like at the end of the fifth one, when Strom's hiding in the room with glass coffin and Hoffman goes there and we see Strom coming behind him, I heard like, turn around, every now and then I fall apart, and I need you now tonight. I can't sing. I need you more than ever. They should have just kissed and made up. I think that would have been a better ending for me. They were really cute together. Or that
I
they
would
were
be pretty
long-lost.
shocked. That would have been a Saw twist if they just ended up as a couple. That would have been something.
That would have been so cute. And I actually I didn't even look up the fan fiction. I'm just looking up because I'm silly. I'm like, that'd be a funny thing to blue sky or tweet. I just looked up Agent Strom and Detective Hoffman, and there is a load of AO3 stuff already written and fan art that's actually really good art of them together. It's a very popular thing. So if you didn't know that's a big deal, and there's a whole community shipping Special Agent Strom and Detective Hoffman, there is.
Good to know.
Well, for some reason, I wrote down Strom breaking rules as to the reason why he is kind of targeted. So I need to figure out why I wrote that exactly, because I feel like he just kind of did things not the way a good cop would do it, which is why I just didn't care for him being the one to go after Hoffman, because to me it just seemed bad going after bad. That was my take on it.
Together, But no, Hoffman. It felt to me, and I could have missed a few things. There's a lot that was happening. It felt like Hoffman only really kind of wanted to kill Strom because he could frame him, and
right, he was on his tail and shit. Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So this one will probably be lower in my ranking once I do that ranking, but I do like the traps. In this one too, I do like these traps probably a little bit more than the previous film. So yes, okay, and we are then now on Saw 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2008. Yes, we get another group in 2008. This one had $800,000 more in their budget, so at 10.8 million, and then the box office got 114 million. And what you mentioned earlier, John, I think you're right, because Lee Whannell, his last screenplay that he wrote was the third film, and then after that we had Patrick Melton, Marcus Dunstan, and then Thomas Fenton for 4, and then for 5, 6, 7, and 7, we have the same two writers again, Patrick and Marcus, who did those scripts. And for this one, we have another first-time director. So James Wan, this was his first movie that he had directed. This was Darren's first film that he had directed. Now we have a new director, David Hackle, and this is his first film. This is the only one that he directs in the franchise. So what are y'all initial thoughts on Saw 5?
You can go first, Emma.
Oh, Saw 5 and Saw 4, as I said, it feels like they go together. So it feels like Saw 5 is an extension of 4. So it's hard for me to judge them because I kind of see them together because it's dealing with the whole Agent Strom after Hoffman. And my other favorite detective, even though we don't really know him well, is Erickson, which is distinguishable because in the fifth one, he doesn't in the next one. He has like this little Bluetooth thing in his ear, like Kim Possible, like, what's the sitch? Kim here, what's the sitch? Like, there's even a scene where Hoffman has Strom's phone, and he's trying to still frame Agent Strom for all the murders.
Yeah.
And and Erickson answers, and I just wanted so bad for this man to say, what's the sitch? But he didn't. He didn't. I Saw 5 this is where it gets confusing for me. So I wrote a lot of notes so I can remember, because Saw 5 and Saw 4 meld together so much. And I'm a fan of the movie Debs. I don't know if you guys have seen Debs.
No.
Oh, it's a cult queer film that's really great. But Megan Good is one of the women in it. She's the one that gets electrocuted in the tub. When I first saw this, I'm like, from Debs, I love her so much. I'm like, how did they pull her in this? But she was great now. I mean, they were all good. But I do feel when it comes to all the Saw ones that have a big group, this one felt more lackluster for me because it focused so much on the whole Strom chasing Hoffman thing, which I liked, but it kind of took a little bit away from the group trial.
I would agree with that. I think This one works on paper similar way like the third one. Like on paper it looks better than it did in film. Like, okay, the Strom versus Hoffman stuff, it doesn't work necessarily because we already know that Hoffman's bad, and it's like him slowly figuring it out, so that aspect doesn't work. The main game with the 5 people, it's one of the weaker ones just because it really doesn't amount to much. It was, oh, we were all inadvertently a part of this building going down and innocent people dying. We worked in collusion there inadvertently, but advertently we can't work in collusion to save ourselves. Like they all had to work together, and they all could have walked out of there scot-free had they known or had they worked together. But of course, Saw being Saw, that's not going to happen, and people being people, that's not going to happen. The best stuff in it, though, is the arc for Hoffman that I really caught on last night when I actually watched it last night. I was like, this is one of the ones I don't watch as much. So I threw it on. And I think the stuff with him is great in it. Like I love, okay, so they introduced that he did a jigsaw mock killing of this guy with the pendulum, which is like the trap of the movie to me.
His sister's murderer. Yeah.
Yeah. His sister got, brutally killed and assaulted by this guy. And, he was personal for him. He kills this guy, didn't give him a chance to win. He gets taken by Jigsaw. And they have this wonderful scene with the two of them. And I actually watched an interview with Costas Mandylor, who plays Mark Hoffman. And he said that Tobin Bell, the night before they shot that, he called them. He said, please come to my hotel room. And he said, okay. And they met, and Tobin Bell was like, I really want this scene to matter. I want this to be the highlight of the movie. And the two of them sat down. They ran through the scene in Tobin Bell's hotel room. And I was like, that's dedication. Like a lot of actors would not care to do that. I thought that worked. That scene was really, really powerful and emotional as both of these guys going back and forth. Like, you didn't give him a chance. You didn't see the blood. You didn't see what he did to her. That was my sister. And he's crying. And Tobin Bell's like, killing is distasteful to me. I loved that. And I think the whole point of this movie is to really show that Hoffman learned from Jigsaw. This is what he learned. And he asks him, he's like, how do you plan for this stuff to happen? And Jigsaw says, you can never plan for it to happen, but when you're good at anticipating the human mind, things sometimes play out how you think. And that's really foreshadows the entire ending with Hoffman going into the glass box. He almost knew that, okay, if I pop up behind him,
it was so cool.
Yeah, he might punch me. I go into the box, and then, walls come in and crash into Strom's world and kills him. I thought that part of it was really smart, but the rest of it, yeah, it is weak. It's just the main game doesn't work. Every room there's bombs. That's so uninspiring. You have 15 minutes to get out of Mr. Bond. That's so uninspiring. That was so lazy. I really don't like that, but I think the character arc of Hoffman worked here. And then, of course, they throw it all away by 6 and 7. So it doesn't, amount to much. But I don't know. I think it's a step up from maybe part 3. I would watch it over part 3 again, just because it's a little bit shorter. But
I like it better than part 3, too. Part 3 isn't one of my favorites either, but I definitely isn't one of my least. And, interesting, non-important fact about the actor who plays Hoffman. In 1991, he is voted one of people's 50 most beautiful men in the world. Beautiful people in the world.
Costas getting some love. I know he does all these B horror movies now, like Hyenas and stuff that goes.
He's done almost 100 movies. He's been in the most. And the guy that plays Strom, I never watched the Gilmore Girls, but he's big from that. And he used to be a New York Yankee.
I didn't even realize that.
I didn't know that at all. What do you think of this one, DeRay?
Yeah, so I think I'm a bit biased just because, like Emma, I am a huge Megan Good fan. So when I saw her in this, I was totally fangirling and loved that she wasn't the first one killed off. She made it almost to the end, so that was great to see. And I think, we learn here how Hoffman became an apprentice to John. And it just kind of showed John's lack of judgment because, he captures Hoffman because he's copycatting him. And he's like, well, we have a lot in common, so why don't we work together? Either that or you die. And I don't think that was a good move on John's part to give him that choice. He should have just immediately put him in a trap instead of making him one of his new apprentices, because as we see, he gets drunk with power. And that just goes to show again, like, John doesn't know everything. He's not always going to be right. But I did like you said also, Emma, this is kind of like a continuation of 4, and it was a fun wrap up at the end, because Strom did have that choice, just as Matthews did, and just as Amanda did. But again, we get their own choices bringing them to their deaths, which is just always fun to see when you're the cause of your death, even though this is all John's doing.
Sure.
Mhm.
John doesn't do anything, remember? He just gives people an option.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
No opportunity. I feel like I've heard of
Exactly.
many of my old bosses say this is an opportunity. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give me a management position where you have less to do and I don't make more money. That's an opportunity right there. That kind of thing. Sure.
Yeah, but I did also like the element of them needing to work together, and all 5 of those people in the game could have survived had they been able to figure out the riddle a bit sooner. But yeah, again, you're the reason for your own demise, which is the theme of the whole franchise, and I've just always have been drawn to that. So yes, I love that.
Yeah. It's rough around the edges. I almost wish it was better. It's like I think it could have been. It just maybe they should have took a year off. Like maybe they should have taken a break. But when you're riding the cash cow, it's just hand over fist, and it's like, okay, it's next October. What do you got? I almost feel like this one could have benefited for waiting a little bit longer, and you could have fully fleshed it out a little bit more. But with that being said, I don't think it's the worst movie in the world. I liked it a little bit better this time around.
Good. Yes, I'm glad you liked it more. Definitely. All right, moving on here to Saw 6 from 2009. It had an $11 million budget. It only grossed $68 million, unfortunately. And this was first time director Kevin Gruder's directorial debut. And yes, same writers, Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan. And so in 6, we find out that Perez is alive, but she immediately is suspicious of Hoffman for some strange reason. But that gets kind of found out later in the after credit scene, which I didn't even know existed until recently. The after credit scene in Saw 6. Yeah.
Whoa, spoil that for me. I got to know. What is the
post? So Perez, right? She's already just suspicious of Hoffman as soon as they see each other for the first time in this, and I'm always like, why? Why did they direct her to be this way? It makes no sense. But at the end of the this movie, we see Amanda tell Corbett, the little girl, while she's locked up, she tells Corbett, don't trust the one who saves you, knowing that Hoffman was going to be the one to pull her out and claim that he saved her. So that little girl obviously told whoever saved her, the paramedics and cops, about Hoffman. So that's why Perez and Strom start to kind of get on his tail a little bit. And I'm just like, wow. Oh, now that makes freaking sense.
Yeah. I got to see that. That's so cool. I didn't know that.
And then we get our second post-credit scene in Saw 10. So I'm surprised that we didn't get more throughout the franchise. But yeah, there are only 2, 6 and 10. And yes, this is so this is when Jill gets her last task from John, and his last wishes. She gets the box with all the envelopes of the people that he wants, one of the last games to be done on. And little does Hoffman know, the last person she has is him. He's supposed to be the last guy that she takes care of. So it's really fun to see her finally involved in the game more so than she has been. And we get our third group game in this one. And
Did we get a group game? Isn't this the one with Peterson, the insurance agent?
Yes. So it's a group. It's his trap, but yeah, he has to go to different people.
I was just making sure.
It's not necessarily a game. Yeah, it's just a bunch of people in different traps. And we almost get to see the reverse bear trap in action in this one. They tease us a little bit. And we finally then also find out why Amanda shot Dr. Denlin in Saw 3, which is just Mwah. I love this reasoning and this setup. So go ahead and take it away, John. What did you like and dislike about this one?
I liked this one. I know it's like a fan series, fan favorite. I would probably say it's my number 4. I like it too. I think it's pretty good. I like the whole idea of the insurance agency, like that being the scumbag guy in this, and he denied Jigsaw healthcare, and he's denied other people, and it's basically him and all these other people, put in the traps, and he has to save them. Granted, again with that theme, I don't really like that. I like when people have to save themselves, but it works. It's a lot better game than the third movie with like him trying to save people, because this guy does, you could see he really wants to try to save people and does. He saves the elderly lady that works in his office. He saves the 2 kids, the 2 people with kids in the carousel, which is like, a lot of people love that trap. I think it's good to a point, but it's like a shotgun to the chest. Like, it's kind of uninspired, but the idea of, you don't know, it's almost like a I don't know, spin the wheel, make a deal. And it's like, if it lands on you, you're done unless he saves you.
Yeah.
That part of it worked. And look at me when you're killing me. And I thought,
that part right there, for the first time rewatching it, I actually got a little emotional. I typically don't with that scene, but for whatever reason, like, I got a little teary-eyed when he said that line and he's watching him shoot him. That was so good. I love that.
Yeah, that's brutal. And that's like got to be the scariest way, because when that thing stops again, you're done. So I thought that was quite something. I thought that worked. I thought for the most part it's entertaining. It works. The whole thing with the finale with Hoffman is he breaks the rules. He kills people that didn't deserve to be killed. And then, of course, it's time for him to go. And then, of course, he gets out of it in a really cool way. Like, you're like, dude, this guy can't be stopped. Like, he's almost like the Terminator by the time part 7 starts. It's actually quite hokey how much indestructible they make him. But I thought it worked. I really did. I thought it worked. It's a shame that this one was the first one that didn't do that well. And I think that's why instead of a 7-8 to end it, we just get to 7, and the 7 becomes a mess because of this one's lesser performance at the box office, even though 60 plus against 11 is really good too. So I don't know. I think it's a really good one. I would say it's like the last one that I really, really think is like above average. I like this one a lot. And of the original 7, I think it's like the last really good one, because the next one, I don't know. But I know Emma was saying it was your favorite sequel, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite sequel. I really liked it. It was a direct commentary to the insurance policies that were going on at the time, and I really found it interesting how the conversation between him and John in the past, of course, that he is doing the same thing John does, really. That John, I do it differently though, because I'm giving people an opportunity. But really, they're doing the same, because John even asked him, "So you get to choose who lives and who dies?" And he's like, "I don't really see it that way. It's about the equations and about because he's so far away from the. I mean, he does have meetings with people, but he's so far away from the lives that he makes decisions about, and he gets off on it. We see Peterson gets off on it, and he's got that bullpen, the 6 team that have the killer equation, and he likes having the power, and John sees that, even though John is kind of like living in a glass house. He really wants to take him down for that. And I really love the ending, where I thought it was his son and his wife, but it wasn't. It was the son and wife of another guy who died because he didn't get health insurance coverage, and it was his sister. And I thought that was a really interesting twist. That was one of the better twists. And I really, that's why I like this one so much. And we don't get a lot of as much Hoffman and Jill until the end, as you said. Like, it's because he looks so big in that trap. Like, it's like he's like massive. It was kind of cool to see somebody actually break out in that way. Of course, he's got four knowledge. He's part of it, but it looks so dinky on him, and it's crazy how he just breaks out of it and gets away. I was surprised that Jill. I'm surprised how they. I don't know if it was an accident, but it's kind of disappointing that Jill is killed in the next one by Hoffman.
Yeah,
It feels like that was a mistake.
Yeah, same for me too. Yes, we'll definitely get there. But I loved seeing Hoffman's face ripped up. Like, finally, something bad has happened to him. And, just the whole inching toward discovering him with Perez and Strom. First they're figuring out the fingertip situation, that it was, posthumous fingerprint that was left. And then figuring out that the knife was used for the same victim, Seth Baxter, and Hoffman just getting like freaked out about them figuring out what they're figuring out. And then finally the voice recognition. And then that scene's probably one of the best scenes in the whole franchise, where he then shoots up Strom, Perez, and the voice recognition technician. Just brutal and so sad. And it's just kind of like deflating, because you're like, yes, you're getting him, you're getting close. And then it's kind of like we just all start all over again. And then Jill gets kind of close to getting him, but then he escapes, and it's like, oh, okay, we're starting all over again. He's like Terminator. He's indestructible. And yeah, it's fun and frustrating at the same time, seeing him go through what he's going through. But yeah, I'd had fun with this one as well. I love the commentary on the American health care system, which is just trash. There's so many people who are raking up their bills and just not paying them because they can't. And it makes sense that I would only pay you if I am sick, not when I'm well. It's all a freaking scam, and I hate it. And the timing of it was good as well. And yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot.
Me too. I like it. It's a lot better than the next one.
We got Saw 3D, or also called Saw 7, and it opens up this time not in a dark dungeon by themselves, but actually it starts out in public, where the trap is happening in front of people, like a freaking sideshow in the daytime, not even at night. So this one was released in 2010 with a $17 million budget, and they came back from the $68 million in the previous film with a $136 million box office that came in. And then we have Kevin Gruder again, so he gets his second chance at directing with this one, and it looks like he did a lot better, especially according
it's a 3D.
I take that back. I was going to say the ratings were a little bit higher, but they're pretty equal, 5 and 6 on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and Letterboxd. Let me see my notes here on 7. So here we just basically have Hoffman going after Jill the entire time, and we have Gibson, who is our new investigator, and he makes me think of Malignant, James Wan's Malignant.
Oh, I love Malignant.
I love Malignant. I don't like this guy.
I love Malignant, but I do not like.
Yeah, but this guy, like this is the opposite of, because I love Malignant too, and I'm like, okay, they're trying to be funny, they're trying to bring a comedy element into this, and I get it. He is that guy. He's suited for it, but I hate him. He's just annoying. So we get him, and they try to sprinkle in some comedy in this one, and I do love, though, one of our first traps with the racists in the car and watching that, and I didn't understand why this guy looked so familiar, but I just realized that he's the lead of freaking Linkin Park, and I'm like, oh, that's freaking why I feel like I know this person when I definitely don't. And then with this installment, we also get the fake Jigsaw survivor, Bobby Dagan, who does his book tour, going around telling people that he survived one of the most horrific traps that Jigsaw set up, but Jigsaw knows about this, obviously, which I never understood why you would fake something like this, knowing that the guy's still out there.
People are
insane. I don't get it. And then at the end of this one, we see Gordon, who we saw in the very first film, working with John, and that is another twist that just is so satisfying and jaw-dropping, and I loved it. So what are y'all's initial thoughts?
So fun fact, this was the first, and until Saw 10, only Saw movie that I saw in a movie theater. I got my dear old dad to take because I was a 13-year-old kid who was dying to know how they're going to end these movies. So he drove me to, and I rented part 6 on the Red Box. That's how it nice. Actually sounds like a relic in a time period long ago, but it really wasn't. We saw this in the theater, and I remember as soon as it ended, we had the 3D glasses on. We spent dumb money to go see it too. They charged so much more for the 3D. Wow. We looked at each other. He looked at me. He goes, "That was a waste of film." That was word for word what he said. And I was like, honestly, I agree. I'm so let down by this movie. It is really like a parody of a Saw movie to me. Like all of it, just the tone of it is so off considering it's supposed to be the grand finale and we saved the best for last. And it just really didn't work. It was just kind of silly. Like the dream sequence and the only bad thing about this, Jill, is I only get to kill you once. And it just really doesn't work. That lead detective guy is the guy from Final Destination. He's one of the first victims of Final Destination 1.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I love this actor. So cool. He is bad in this, man. I mean, I'm like, I would have fired him. I would have been like, dude, you need to come up with something else.
Guy, you know?
Yeah. Oh, horrible. And like all the traps in this just are so silly. Like the guy who's blindfolded walking across, like it's almost like an obstacle course. I'm like, what? And then you have the lady who with the fish hook in her throat. He's like, you just ought to shut up.
Oh my God. Like, how is she supposed to shut up? But I do get mad at her because after it's pulled out, she's still screaming. Like, I get it hurts, bitch, but hello, like you have this thing measuring your decibels, like literally shut the fuck up. Like it's already out of your mouth. Who cares if you're still in pain? Aren't you trying to get out of this contraption? So no, I was on his side with that one. Shut the hell up.
Oh, sure. I don't know. And then the very, very obvious twist at the end, once you all of a sudden, Dr. Gordon's back. Like the first thing you see is he's crawling out of the bathroom. I'm like, dude, way to show your hand 1 minute in. I know how it's going to end. And like,
Sure.
I think this was such a
I guess
sad
I didn't get
ending.
that at first.
Yeah, it was just such a. No. I know they wanted to do 2 movies. Like they were going to do 7 and 8 and then end it. And they had to push 2 movies into 1. So that was your mess. Shooting it in 3D. It's his director's second movie. You just really forced him into it. And I think that, unfortunately, this one's a mess. And I think, honestly, this should have been it. I mean, the next 2 I hate. Well, actually, no, I'm not seeing Spiral.
About the third one, too. This should have been it. Like maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it should be more. I want more. I'm jealous.
I do think after 3 you could have ended it in theory because it doesn't seem like.
I'm just teasing you. I'm not serious.
I know. I don't know. This one though, it's quite bad. It's quite silly. I think it's one of the worst ones. I think it's definitely in the bottom 3.
It's my second. I only dislike one more less than this one. But what I do like, I agree with everything you guys said. I do like Carrie Hughes coming back, and I like how he comes back. He's like a Bond villain, just slow. And that closing line, he's like, I think I speak for all of us here when I tell you how grateful we are to be part of your promotional DVD. And he's just like a full Bond villain at that point. Like he's just hamming it up, and I love that. I also love this is the beginning tradition, which only happened again in Spiral. When they have John getting his book signed by the guy. I hated all that plot. Didn't like, but and he has his backwards hat. Like,
why does he have a backwards hat? Tell me.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Why? Just wear it frontwards, front ways.
Will the real Shady please stand up? I love it because it's so
Stop
dumb.
it.
Yes,
No.
it indeed is the past. Everyone.
I'm 40 years younger.
Forget all that expensive de-aging they did on Tom Cruise. Just put a backwards hat on them, then we get it. We know. And those are really the only things I liked about it. Like I just pretty much the same thing as you guys. I mean, I liked Carrie Hughes coming back. I liked seeing him go full ham. And it's it really sets the tone with the first trap. They're like, hey, you know how you always wanted Saw to be a little wacky? It's like, no one asked that. No one.
Yeah, it didn't work for me so much, but it does work for me a little bit in Spiral, which we'll get to with that one. But this wasn't
Rock
the
also
one.
Has a backwards cap. I wonder if that was intentional.
Right?
It was in the past.
Probably, girl. It was. No, it was an homage because there's so many in Spiral and in Jigsaw that likely was why they did that. Now that you say that, for sure it has to be. But yeah, it just didn't totally work for me here because I came into this wanting what I always was getting, especially in the first 2 to 3 films. But yeah, we already open up with a terrible line where homeboy in that first trap says, I think we're breaking up with you. And I'm just like, oh my God, really? Like
Jigsaw calls her toxic. She is
Yeah,
toxic. I was like,
so
oh my
funny.
God, this is
According to an interview, I wasn't in an interview. I can't remember where I heard it, but the guys that are helping, I don't know why. I don't know if they were planning on going a different direction or if it's just randomness. The guys that were helping Dr. Gordon at the end were the guys from the first trap in the movie, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what that adds, but fine.
it really, I don't know, it was a mess. This is just a mess of a movie, but it is not my least favorite. That would go to the next movie, which
Yeah, mine too. Same.
there you go.
Same.
So I guess I don't know what watch DeRay be like. It's my second favorite. I hope it's not because me and Emma hate that shit.
I don't hate it, but it's so
I do.
I don't like it. It doesn't so
Hey
I
guys, real
just
quick, I'm gonna add Night, and I feel like
go, let
I
him
feel like it was my fault because I had the links all switched around. So welcome, Night. I am so sorry
Yay!
if it was my fault. I
Mm.
had my
Hey,
viewer
what's up?
stream this evening mixed up. Hey, 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 how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm sorry. I had it
Okay, so
was
it
it
wasn't
was
my
on
fault.
me. No, it wasn't
Okay,
your
good.
fault.
Thank goodness.
We had a
Okay.
power outage and oh man, it messed me
Oh
all up.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I am so sorry to hear that.
It's all good though. I'm good.
All right. Well, we are on what were you saying, Emma? I'm sorry to cut you off. Were you on 7 still, or did we go to Jigsaw?
I was just saying how the next one's my least favorite. All done with it. I'm wrapped up.
Great. Yeah, so we're moving on to 8 slash Jigsaw. And no, it's not my favorite, so don't be worried about that, John. But I would probably say it is at the bottom because, when I first watched this movie, I was just so confused. Like, why is John alive? So we have John in Jigsaw here, and we go back to another group game. We're in a group game, and we find out later that it's a past group game, one of the very first, and we go back to an apprentice that was an apprentice before Amanda, but we don't see him because he apparently goes off to war, and then that's why we get Amanda and Hoffman and the rest. And yeah, with this one, we also have a bit of some different things going on because it's one of the first games that John creates, and what he's trying to get them to do is just confess their wrongdoings versus um working together or any other plans he had for his groups in the past. This one's just more about just accepting who you are, which is kind of interesting. But again, I just didn't like the fact that I was so confused through most of this, like as to why this man is still alive when I saw him die in 3. So yes, we'll start with Night this time. So give me your first thoughts, what you like and dislike about Jigsaw from 2017, which actually had a $10 million budget, $103 million at the box office. And this was actually done by the Spierig brothers. They directed this one, but this was not their first movie. And this was the first time we got Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger on the writing team, who would then go on to write Spiral and Saw 10. So go ahead and take it away, Night.
Yeah, I think with this one, it had some good moments, but it's definitely not one of my favorites. Um, I've probably watched it. Well, I don't want to say the least amount in the franchise because I absolutely love the franchise, but it just didn't have that same type of soul that the other ones had for me. I think it was cool, but once you start going like at this point in the franchise, they were real. First of all, and I'm sure you guys already talked about this, but obviously killing John was the worst mistake that they made in the franchise. That was just bad. And at this point, it just seemed like they were still just trying to find ways to mine some more mythology. And we have, this happened, that happened, this happened. We have another, successor and so forth. And it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like it was really, really tacked on. You know what I mean? The traps were they just didn't seem as cool. Um, the storyline was okay, but again, this was just one of those movies in the franchise where I think they were just really running up against the wall, like pretty much from the beginning to end. I mean, it's not horrible. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's horrible, but in comparison to the ones that I
Mhm.
enjoyed the most, it just like really it just pales. It really does.
I agree with that completely. It just felt like after 7 had ended, the glory days were over. Like the torture movie was really, they weren't coming out anymore. After Saw
Mhm.
3D, they weren't making torture movies that were being released theatrically anyway. And this felt like very
Right.
much like, okay, if we tease that he's back and we'll put him on the poster, people
Yep.
will come to see it. And they did. They made over $100 million. But I just think it's such a weak movie. I don't like the lead game. I don't like the whole red herring thing. Oh, is it this new redhead lady Eleanor? Oh, is it
Right,
this?
right.
Is it this
Yeah.
guy? And to get to the finale up, there was another guy who was off in Fallujah. He was off in Fallujah during the rest of the movie. I was like, I'm sorry, but somebody should have just said no to that. Like, that is just
I know.
horrendously right. Like, he was in
That's what I
Fallujah
thought when
taking
I
pictures, was he? For 8
that's
movies? Like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I said I get it. They're trying to find a way to like keep this thing going, but it just didn't hit for me because I'm just like, okay, come on, guys. Like I get it. We're trying to keep this franchise going. We want to keep it fresh and we want to, open up another avenue, but it just didn't work for me because I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. Like he's just been hanging around like way in the background for all of this
Yeah.
time. I was like, no, bro, no. It
yeah,
just didn't work.
it didn't work at all. I think
No.
too, like, while the new Saw movie I think is definitely better than this, there's no doubt about that. I think the difference
Yeah.
between the two being like reboots, this one's heartless, the new one had heart. That's the difference. Like, I
Yes.
see much more care
Yeah.
and like ode to the older movies there than I do here. This just looks like,
Right.
oh, we're gonna try again, and it just seemed like a fart in church. Like it came and went, and it was smelled for a few seconds, and that's it. It's just done.
I
Like,
felt like they
Mhm.
couldn't make a decision between they wanted to do something new and take it in a new direction, but keep everything old, and it couldn't be new and it couldn't be the old, and it doesn't stick to John's philosophy, and he has that stupid goatee on his chin the whole time. Very annoying for me. And some of them that aren't the best ones. Usually, it's like, okay, so either the main story isn't holding up when it comes to like what's going on between the backgrounds or the cops, or the traps aren't working. But with this, neither worked for me.
yeah,
And the stupid trap with the grain, like, what is that? And just like a bunch of tools falling on him. That is the laziest thing. And then they made a big deal about because she had rebuilt that trap that's just like a big blender funnel, and it wasn't even a
Yeah.
cool trap, and they made it like seem
Right.
like a big deal, and everything just felt like, yeah, sure, yeah, okay. And I really disliked Logan, who was supposed to be the disciple. I mean, he just
Mhm.
was lame and annoying, and I just there was not. It didn't have heart, as you said, and it didn't have any fun either. Neither.
Mhm.
yeah. They tried to throw that really like forced humor into it too, where it's like Billy Saw Puppy. He's like, oh, that's not creepy. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work at all here. That's not in a Saw movie. Like, that doesn't, like, I would be freaked out if my leg was, tangled up in wires like that. And I also think they made the people ridiculously unlikable. Like, the one guy, he sold Jigsaw's nephew like a
Oh, that is
motorcycle
the
without
dumbest.
brakes.
That's so dumb.
Yes.
Well, you wouldn't even need. So people will buy a motorcycle with just tell them the brakes don't work. It doesn't cost that much to fix them. It doesn't even make sense that he
No.
would lie about that. He could still sell it for $600 probably. It doesn't even
Right.
make sense.
No.
And he
Right.
doesn't
It was
look like he's down and out either. Like he really needs $600. I just didn't make any sense. And then
it was
and the
poor.
fact they had to make him Jigsaw's nephew felt like a spit in the face. Like, come on, we don't need
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally
Mhm.
agree. Totally agree. It
Blame
just didn't, in the other movies beforehand, they just like to me the story, the connection of the story and the mystery and working the puzzle pieces together and all that type of stuff. That was like the big fun for me as a fan of the franchise. And with this one, I just didn't have the fun with it. Just like I said, it didn't have that heart. It didn't have, I mean, again, I still have watched it. I don't even know how many times, but I can tell you it's a lot less than, pretty much all of the others. So
easily. It's the one
Yeah.
that you could easily skip it. Like there's not
Yeah.
anything you'll really miss. Like it's kind of
No.
just blah to me.
yeah,
The only
It
reason
is.
Jigsaw is in it at all is to, solidify that character was a part of it the whole time. There's nothing new about John. There's nothing new about anything.
right.
Yeah.
And it kind of took away from Amanda's ownership of the reverse bear trap, which is like her thing. It's her shrine. And
Yeah.
having and seeing him like be a part of that's like, what the hell? That was hers. Why is this guy here?
He made it before he
shouldn't
went to
have even touched
Fallujah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And yes. I don't like that. And yeah, the surprise ending, it wasn't as impactful as they've been in the previous movies. I wasn't
Right.
blown away, and I was just more frustrated than anything. And yeah, this is probably going to be, one of my bottoms for sure in my ranking video.
Did I just miss it? But what
Unfortunately.
happened to the redhead, the one that was making all the traps, and she was just like,
Oh,
the www.jigsaw
Literal
what
red
did
herring.
happen to her?
Give her red hair.
Yes.
No, but it's
She
like, I love
was
the
literally.
website. That is the only thing I like. www.jigsawrules.com. So because it was just so
With that
dumb.
whole
And she
Saul
went there at the
shrine.
end, and then she went with him, and then they did the thing between him and the cop. But then she was gone. Like, what happened to her? Did I miss it? Like, was she an accomplice, or was she just like, oh, I can leave now?
No, she wasn't involved. She was like just like a
No,
fangirl.
But then
Yeah.
she went to the barn with him, and then where did she go? Where
Fallujah.
did she go after that? I don't remember. Like, I just
Fallujah.
watched it.
You're making me think. Where did she go? Let me see. Did I
think
write
they
it
just
down?
forgot about her. They're
Didn't
like,
she
yeah,
get killed?
she's not the killer, and that's all you need to know.
She got killed? Really?
Really?
Didn't she?
I don't
Now
She
you
I
had
got-
to
now
have
you got
gotten
me.
killed.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
I'm
it since
sorry.
it came out. I'm good.
I
on
watched
rewatch.
it today. Or
You're like,
yesterday.
I don't need to do that again.
Today. Now I gotta
I
Let
look it
me
up.
see. But her shrine to, the Saw killer reminded me of the latest Scream movie. And I wonder if Scream was almost influenced by her shrine, or it just made sense to do what they did. But it just made me think of Scream when they had all of the killer's artifacts
memorabilia
all
kind of
displayed.
theme.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, when she's talking to Logan about, the Jigsaw killer and, oh, he could have done this and this could have happened, when he gets really aggressive with his responses to her, like, no, that couldn't have happened. It was already given away to me that it was going to be him. Like I knew that she was just a fake out, and then my focus was on him. So again, I wasn't surprised. Nothing blew me away. And yeah, it was just a super underwhelming one. I'm not going to say I dislike it, because like I think I told you guys earlier, I don't dislike any of the movies in the franchise, but it's definitely not one of the more exciting ones for me.
I guess she did survive.
Yeah, they forgot
she
about
did?
her. Like, she just goes to the barn
That's
with him
weird.
because we don't know he's the killer, right? And then the whole showdown happens,
Right.
and then so does she know that it doesn't matter, because I hope we never see Logan again, so who cares,
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
it's like that's something they just forgot about. That's how lazy they were with everything in this movie. Like, oh, doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. It just didn't, like, in a franchise where they really made so many cool connections and intrigue. Like, this was one where it seemed like they just dropped the ball, as far as being at that particular level where you're like, okay, all right, this is kind of cool. It's like, no, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
after she went to the farm and had a gun on her and he got drugged out and she ran out to the road and waved down a car, and that was it. It's like, okay, well, she was kind of pointless. Except for being the red herring, the literal red herring.
It's usually me. This isn't my real hair, obviously. So.
All right, so moving on to everybody's favorite, Spiral from 2021. This one had a $20 million budget, so the biggest budget thus far, even more than the latest installment, Saw 10, only made $40 million at the box office. And we come back to Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. And this time, again, we have Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger as the writers for this one. And so it's funny because Lee Wanell shares a story that, he met Chris Rock Rock at some event, and Chris was just like kind of blowing him off because Lee was fangirling over him, saying, "Oh, I'm such a big fan, blah, blah, blah." And Chris walks away. But then one of Chris's friends is like, "Hey, that's the dude who wrote Saw." And he comes back to Lee and he's like, "Yo, I love the Saw movies. I'm going to make a Saw movie one day." And Lee thought nothing of it. Years later, this freaking movie is made. So it's interesting to know that Chris Rock is just a huge fan, had this idea for a movie, and wanted to make it a part of the franchise. Yes, it has almost, nothing to do with any of the storylines or anything. And when I went into this one, I actually just saw this one recently, about 2 months ago, because I had been resistant towards it because I heard all the negativity surrounding it, and I didn't want to have my first Saw movie that I didn't like. And when I watched it, I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't having a good time. But when I did the research on it and found out that it's basically Chris's baby, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. And now I can actually appreciate and enjoy this movie because it wasn't supposed to fit in necessarily with the other movies. And he had a huge hand in writing this one. And I didn't like the humor in 3D or Jigsaw, but it works here. And I guess it's maybe because it's not necessarily a Saw movie. It is Spiral. There might be a Spiral 2 and Spiral 3, but this is a Spiral movie that is kind of inspired by Saw. I kind of see it that way. And I can appreciate it, because Chris Rock is just a great actor. He's a great comedian, and he can go both ways. We got Samuel L. Jackson, same thing. He can go really serious or really funny in the same breath. And seeing them together in this horror movie, because you don't really get to see your favorite actors in horror movies a lot, was just a joy to see. Yes, I didn't like it at first when I watched it, but the backstory just made it make sense to me, and I fell in love with it. So I was happy to know that I didn't have a movie that I didn't like in the Saw franchise. So tell me why you hate it so much, John. I want to know.
I don't hate it at all. I actually have not seen it,
okay,
so I can't be.
Wait, Spiral?
I have not seen Spiral. No.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you hated the next two movies, which I thought would be.
I meant
Jigsaw
3D and Jigsaw. I think Jigsaw is the bottom of the barrel, and it's the biggest reason why I stayed away from this, because it's the same writers. And I was like, if they're writing totally about antagonists that go to Fallujah, I feel bad for Chris Rock and Sam Jackson. And I was like, no, I'm not. And also, like, this was supposed to come out before it did, but I won't say the word, but there was the whole, thing with the pandemic.
Oh, yes.
That hurt it. And then when it did come out, it wasn't like, the world hadn't really reopened yet. So you only make 40 million against the budget of 20, which really for Saw is not good at all. And that's not going into the marketing money, which they did market this. They really tried to, okay, our last reboot attempt failed. Let's try this. It might have worked, I think, had all that stuff not happened and the world been opened up. It would have been interesting to see its performance then. I've heard good things, though. I've heard more good than not, and I'd like to see it. I think I just stayed away at the time because of the writers, because I think Jigsaw, this, and Saw 10 all have the same writers. But each one of those movies also has a different director. You have the Spirigs and Jigsaw. You have Darren coming back for this, and then Kevin Grutert by the time we get to the Saw 10 movie. I would like to see it. I'm all for seeing it. I'll have to give it a look at some point. I don't hate it at all. I like Chris. I guarantee you, I like it more than Jigsaw. That'd be tough to do.
Yes. It's on Hulu. So if you have that, it's free. Sorry, Emma, I'm gonna mute you real quick. So yeah, definitely check it out. They toyed with the idea of trying to tie in Danny Glover as like his dad, which would have been cool to see that if they were able to pull that off, but that would have been too difficult to make it still separate, from the whole franchise. But Samuel was a good replacement, even though Samuel L. Jackson's character is really annoying, because we kind of go back to the corrupt cop situation where they're targeting corrupt cops, which I don't mind watching corrupt cops getting what they deserve. So it was fun seeing them in their traps. But the traps to me were a bit weaker in the franchise. We could have probably done a little bit better. Like the wax on the face with severing the spinal cord at the same time, I can feel it being painful, but it wasn't visually stimulating like it probably could have been. And then the ripping of the fingers and getting electrocuted, okay, that's kind of boring. But I liked the storyline, and I liked seeing the different characters' struggles and the twist with Homeboy being the copycat killer. Because I enjoyed him in Handmaid's Tale. What's his name again? The new copycat killer. You know, I
Shank.
liked watching him. Yeah, Shank alongside Chris Rock. They were great together. Anybody
Yeah,
else
I
see
think
Spiral by any chance? Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Oh,
I think
I
no,
did
I
enjoy.
agree with a lot of what you said. I think that first of all, okay, so I'll start from the beginning. So going into Spiral, I had heard a lot of, negative things about it as well. And I was also really nervous because I didn't want to not like a Saw movie. And
Yes.
especially with Chris Rock, helming it, and I had heard the stories about, just a little bit about, how he was such a big fan. So when I went into it, I was, I didn't hate it. I mean, I don't think I loved it at first because it is different. And so I think for me, my mindset had to kind of readjust because again, it's called Spiral from the book of
Mm-hmm.
Saw.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
kind of yeah, it's in the in its it's in the Saw universe, but it's kind of got its own little bubble. And once I kind of approached it from that perspective, I really enjoyed it a lot more. And kind of stepping back from it, I was thinking, yeah, yeah, I really do dig it. I mean, I think Chris Rock, I thought he was great in it. Even from the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, this is really, really a great movie for Chris Rock. Samuel Jackson, of course, he's awesome. But I do agree with you though that the traps didn't really bring much to the table, which was a
Right.
little disappointing. Um, the wax one, that one was maybe one of the better ones other than at the very end. And so that was kind of like too that was too bad. The twist and the reveal, I think they could have done a little bit of a better job on it. They tried to throw you off at one point, and I don't know if we're gonna talk all the specifics, but they tried to throw you off at one point with your boy, and I was kinda like, "Oh, so I guess it isn't him." But they only hold on to that for, like, 10
Yeah, the
seconds.
tattoo.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and so then they just kinda, like so anyways, I thought they could have done a better job with that, but as far as, like, the whole idea of the story, the whole idea of the police corruption and stuff like that, I thought that that was pretty good, um, and it felt different, but it still felt like kinda like a Saw movie. So I enjoy
Yeah.
Spiral. I think it gets a lot of, uh, negativity unjustly, I actually enjoy it. It's not my favorite, but it's almost near the middle for me when I've done my rankings of the franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so to go back to what you were saying, like it's its own thing, but it still goes with the franchise. So, like I mentioned before, the cinematographer for 1 through 7 was David A. Armstrong. And then for 8, we had Ben Knott, who tried his best to make it look exactly like the way David A. Armstrong did it. And then for
Mhm.
Spiral, we have Jordan Oram. And yeah, while it has its own vibe, it still fits in the Saw franchise. And then we also get moments where Chris Rock's face is brightened up like they've done in the previous movies. In previous movies, I feel like it was kind of a mistake on lighting and camera settings because with brown and black folks, they're super brightened up and burned. You could tell in post they had to try to fix it because it was just too dark. And I'm like, well, in 2021, Jordan Orum's doing everything else right. There's no reason why they needed to brighten Chris Rock's face. Just shoot it properly. And I feel like it
Mhm.
might have just been an homage to the previous film's mistakes, possibly. Like, I'm hoping these were mistakes because, yeah, you don't want to have it visibly be brightened up on camera. In a photo, maybe, but not in a moving picture. It looks funny. And so they don't do it throughout the whole film in Spiral. They do it a couple of times. I'm like, I wonder if that's just a nod to them doing it in previous movies.
Right.
So that I thought that was funny. So yes, Emma, what did you think about Spiral?
I think it's decent. I got to see it at the drive-in, and so
Oh,
that
okay.
added an extra little flair of fun. I liked that they went like they were able to not, they don't have to stick to whatever John Kramer's philosophy and worry about all that. They can do their own thing. I
Yeah.
liked how sweaty it was. It's a movie you can smell. And I always kind of,
Oh,
it's not a
yeah.
good smell. I like that. I liked the traps because it felt like, well, because John Kramer was a civil engineer and Sheck is not. So so they really try to do work on traps that somebody that's not an engineer could make and that would work. And I like that they changed the recording voice because it wouldn't make sense if it was John's.
No,
And
yeah.
it was
Thank goodness.
creepy, and I loved the pig puppet. I loved and the pigs. Kind of, it's very tongue in cheek with the cops and all that, but I kind of enjoyed it. And I mean, yes, the end is very predictable, but I really loved. I don't want. We've already gotten spoiled a little bit. I'm not going to spoil the last trap for you, John, because it's my favorite. One of my favorite traps. Actually.
Well, we're gonna talk about it. We got to talk about it because I had some things to say about Sam's trap. He had time to watch it.
He's like a marionette. I thought that was super cool, and of course,
it was cool.
The audience wants to hear Sam Jackson say, "You want to play a motherfucking game?" Snakes on a plane. We have to hear it. And I liked the we don't know exactly that his dad was the one. What is it? They called it like Preposition 8, and it's kind of
Article 8.
Article 8, which makes me think. I don't know what they were trying. If they were doing something exactly, but it makes me think of like Giuliani's like knocking doors policy that was like really awful and all this. It really. I feel like a lot of people I don't like that they made it so political, or I think that I liked it. I think it fit. I think they did the right amount of attention for it, and I liked this one. I thought it was decent. I actually really liked it when I think about it. Yeah, I really liked it. It had its own style. It has its own standalone power. I mean, yes, as you guys were saying, the ending is so predictable because how many people are in this movie? Who could it be?
Right.
And I think he was really, not that he has to, because John did exist 10 years ago. It's been a decade since he's been dead. But I really feel that Sheck was really kind of going the real, true John Kramer route. He thinks he's doing the right thing by giving people opportunities. And
with that, I feel like it kind of goes back to it's almost justified because these cops are killing people and they're putting them away. So it's kind of okay, we're team serial killer again. It's almost justified in my movie watching mind, So that's why it's a little bit enjoyable, even though the traps could have been a lot worse.
Good point. I agree. But it's not a bad film. And actually, the more I've watched it, the more I've actually enjoyed it. So, hey, what's up, Danielle?
What's up? What's up to everybody in the chat? Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. We are going to move on to our last movie. We're not going to go through it quickly, but I just want to get to it quickly because I do have another live stream here in about 45 minutes. So if you want to hang out some more, I'll be back on this channel and we'll be talking about The Human Centipede and Bad Milo. These were my two picks for my Guilty Pleasures live stream with the Guilty Pleasure Gang. We've each picked two movies to talk about for the past 2 or 3 months, and this is the last episode. So I'm excited to finally talk about my two picks. So Saw 10 just came out on September 29th, and the budget for that was $13 million. Right now, the box office is at $58.8 million. And we get back our director, Kevin Grudert, who did Saw 6 and 7, y'all's favorites.
6 is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 6.
And we get a new cinematographer, Nick Matthews, who just knows the Saw world and recreated it so beautifully. We again get Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger. And this is going to be my only other film besides the first one that's going to get 5 Rainbow Skulls out of 5. I absolutely loved this one. We go back to the beginning where this basically takes place between Saw 1 and 2. And Kramer gets his revenge on these folks, these doctors, or one doctor and her team who pretend to do a brain tumor removal on him. So anybody watching, we will be getting into spoilers for Saw 10. What I just mentioned right now is in the trailer. But if you don't mind more trailers, stick around because we will be dissecting this one. And yeah, this one just felt more personal to me. We have John Kramer, who is actually right there in his victims' faces while they are completing their tasks. We have the monitors in his control room that we probably don't even need because he can see everything right there. But just for the sake of it being a Saw film, we have to have those monitors because we've had them all the time with the security cameras and every installment. So I thought that was kind of funny. And again, just like we did in Jigsaw and Spiral, we get a whole bunch of homages, which is just a bunch of fun to point out. And we get our girl back, Amanda. You know, she dies off in 3, which is pretty sad, along with her spiritual father. And just seeing them come back together again, working as a team, sort of, because she's kind of at this point still growing into her apprenticeship and is feeling a bit, you know, sorry for some of her captors or her victims, we'll call them, and especially the young girl who I also felt a bit sorry for because she's a drug addict and she's maybe forced into this line of work for one reason or another. And yeah, so who Amanda was feeling sorry for, I was also feeling for as well. But everybody else definitely got what they had coming to them, and seeing his first victim of that group of doctors and friends survive was fun to see. Like, we do see John's compassion still, and his explanation for things is just really straightforward and something that we can really relate to and even agree with at points. So yes, give me your thoughts, Emma, on Saw 10.
Oh, be first, okay. I loved it. It was interesting for me to think of it in terms of the majority of the Saw films. As I said earlier, they're from the early 2000s, like the Bush Cheney the Bush Cheney era, the Patriot Acts, like increased surveillance states, 4chan, things, heads getting chopped off, Guantanamo Bay, and now, after everything that's happened, is something that was interesting to me was that we know John Kramer's the killer. He's a murderer, but they do put the audience in the position to feel more comfortable with him killing people. But I think it's more about the contrast between him and Dr. Peterson, the blonde woman, because she's worse. Like John, we know wouldn't kill an innocent child that way. We know that we know he sticks by his code. You get past his traps, you go free. But she is absolute chaos. She, like some people, like we know in the real world, but I don't want to go too political, but not anyone specific, but just some people are absolute evil. And she'll kill anybody for any reason. She's awful. And so it's kind of finding some weird comfort in one villain over the other, and kind of finding soothing in the torture and traps of one villain that at least has some kind of moral code, as opposed to this absolute garbage human being.
And seeing her, so the girl who both Amanda and I feel bad for basically completes her trap and should be taken to the hospital to recover from her injuries, but Peterson just kills her just because she didn't want to split the money with her. So she, at this point, is definitely more evil than Kramer. And I'm interested to see her in a Saw 11 because, she's not in Saw 3. So if she is in Saw 11, it'll be another like 1.75 type movie where we'll finally hopefully see her get hers, because she's not going to survive. If she did survive, she would have been in 3, 4, 5, or 6, or 7. But if they went on with this again, with the same storyline, and we see Amanda, Kramer, and that little boy move on to a different story, I'm sure we'd see Peterson get killed, which I would love to see. What's up, Danielle? Thanks again for joining us, and everybody else in the chat. Dino, Dominic, Denisha. I feel like I saw all these D names. I love it. What's up, D crew? Let's go. In case you didn't know, my name is DeRay, and welcome to my channel.
I have double D's, so you know D's.
Hey!
You guys can talk so
You
well
can't
about
say
the
that without shaking them, Emma. You have to say it and shake. There you go.
Wow.
You guys are so good at talking about the traps in it. So I want to say it was interesting, that contrast between Peterson and Kramer, and also I think it was supposed to be funny because I thought it was funny. This is the first time they successfully added a sense of humor without it being cringy or being out of place. Was when they used the intestines to try and get the cart.
Yes.
That was funny to me. I thought that was funny. So
Right.
And then Amanda being so casual with playing with the intestines is a callback to her already having to deal with intestines when she had to get her key out for the reverse bear trap. Another callback. I love it so much.
Yes.
But yes. All right, John, what were your initial thoughts?
I'm not as high as most people. I didn't hate it. No. I think it's very middle of the road. I think they did the little things right. They shot it on 35 millimeter again. They went back to the roots. They brought heart to it. They really, really made Tobin the star. And I think that was really smart because his performance is worth watching it alone. He's really good in the movie. I like to see Shawnee Smith back. Granted, I will say this, and I don't mean to be mean, but they do look their age. Like they look elderly.
Yeah.
And it's
he looks great.
It's like Saw 2.
I didn't think so.
Did they just de-age in Saw 2 now? Like it's just a little bit blaring.
I mean, she looks older, but she didn't look bad. But it's like she definitely isn't the chick from Saw 2.
It's
3.
almost like 30 years ago. What, 20 years ago? It's been 20 years.
Oh, sure.
They look great though.
But
I would say this. Her biggest problem would be her haircut in the movie is the worst thing. That is, oh my God.
Because I hate her haircut in 2 as well. Like in 2, it's like, why does she even have this? Because I love her long hair in 3.
In 3, that was her best look, man. Like, yeah,
she looks, I mean, it's like right up there with Courtney Cox's bangs in Scream 3 for like the worst haircut in any movie I've ever seen. I'm just like, wow, this is pretty bad. But I think the plot is kind of hokey and unbelievable. And I think that what comes down to, I don't really like these writers. Like, there's no way John Kramer would fall for that. Like, it just seems because, so. Like,
your head is wrapped. Why wouldn't you feel the pain and be like, oh, I'm going to pay you tomorrow, and then not realize that there's not a wound on your head? So I get that criticism for sure. But keep going with your idea. Keep going.
I thought that, like, the whole setup to it, I'm like, all right, I'll suspend my disbelief, but there's no way this character who's 9 steps ahead of everybody at all times would fall for this scam. Hey, we got a experimental treatment in Mexico. You want to come down? He gets intercepted by the cartel to go to this. I'm like, Jigsaw would have known something was up, man. I'm not half as smart as him, and I feel like I would have been like, all right, this is a little freaking weird, but okay. You get over that.
Yeah, it's the hope. No, I was just going to say that. You're right, Emma. Exactly. He had the hope, and he already had dealt with other people. He thought, like you said, he's 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And I think, I could be wrong, but Peterson might be the daughter of the original doctor he wanted, who might have been able to cure him possibly, but then she was just the con artist.
Right.
And
so she actually was the daughter.
Yeah, so he had done his research, and so he thought he did his due diligence and all of that. And this is, again, only 1.5. You know, he was smart and all of that, but like he was still, I think, vulnerable to just the hope of staying alive.
Sure, yeah, and I can suspend my disbelief. I won't lie. When I saw the trailer, I was like, what? Like, I was like, I'm going to hate this, but I didn't. Some of the traps, I thought they worked. I actually thought Homegirl that fucking, I'm sorry for cursing, that sawed off her own leg with the, oh my God, that lady should have lived, because you go from the first
that movie,
you got to cut off your foot. This lady, she's like, I was like, oh my God.
Fast enough. She wasn't fast enough as part of the game.
She took too long to start it. It's like, dude, why are you sitting there thinking about it? Just start it. Of all people, Peterson was her biggest cheerleader, which is really weird.
I would absolutely just for 3 minutes, just like recollect my life. I would never in a million years do that to my leg. That's not worth it.
I am on that same page. Like if I was in any of these traps, I would just be like, all right, well, I got X amount of minutes left. This is what I'm going to start thinking about. Like, that's it.
The lady that like broke her wrist, that I could have done. I was like,
yes.
It's either saw off your own femur or break your wrist. Like I feel like she got off a little bit easy there.
But
Then
she
the
had
guy
the
had to
radiation
do
on her face.
the guy had to do brain
Yeah.
surgery. That one was okay. I
The
think
first one was easy. He just had to break his hand, or his eyes would get sucked out.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah,
That
Right.
one,
break
I'm
my
like, just
fingers.
crank it, just crank it, just crank
Yeah,
it. You
Jason
know,
Jason goes to help me, break all my fingers, and so I get
That's
information,
right.
which is stupid in its own right. But
he just had to crank that dial, and he could see.
yeah,
That's right.
I think really where it got people and why it's getting such positive reviews is the sentimental stuff in it. It really
Yes.
focused on the relationship between John and Amanda. And like,
Yeah.
while I like that, and I think that added a lot of heart, I also think I've been saying this since I walked out of the theater. Saw 10 is soft, and it's spelled SAWFT. It's a little bit soft. It's not as gritty as the other ones. It doesn't fit in with the first 7. It almost feels like a fan film that was made on the side. It was like, okay, we'll plug it in here. It doesn't really fit in with those. But that being said, it's well done enough. I think it's passable in a world where heartless reboots exist. I do see heart here, and I do think, it's nice that it's getting all this love. And I do think, for what it's worth, they're going to do an 11, but I don't think it's going to be what people want. I for sure think the post-credit scene means that a certain somebody doesn't die at the end of Saw 3D, and they're going to do. I love Hoffman, just like Knight.
That's my boy. I was like, yo,
Mr. Lips is still alive in this timeline, so
I think he lives. I think that's how they're going to continue it. He's going to survive that somehow.
Oh yeah.
Well, he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
It's the past, baby.
Listen,
Back to the Future.
When they
This
got
was
to that point,
certainly a fan film. Go ahead, Knight. What are your thoughts about this one?
when they got to the stinger and Costas Mandalore shows up, man, there were people in the theater that were like, "What?" And I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I like Hoffman. I mean,
Me too.
I enjoyed his little story. Yes, he's obviously a despicable character, and he's not John Kramer, but he had his own like his little nook that I kind of enjoyed. He was so flawed. He was so much more flawed than John. You know what I mean? So as soon as they showed him, I was like, "Well, thank you." And it kind of hyped me up a little bit. But to your point too, though, John, like saying that it felt, kind of like a fan film and it was plugged in and this and that. Like I get that a little bit. But for me, first of all, I was just so glad that Tobin Bell was front and center. Like I was so concerned that they were saying we're going to get Tobin Bell back. We saw the trailer, and I was thinking, okay, are they going to really commit?
Yeah. Or
And
do
they
another
did.
Jigsaw.
Right. Right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is this going to be another like Jigsaw situation where we get a little bit of him, but not enough, and then it kind of focuses on someone else? But it was really a John Kramer story, which was smart. Tobin Bell, I thought he had home run. The traps, there were some good traps in there, but his connection with Amanda, that's what really brought it home for me, and I really enjoyed it. I do agree that I don't want to say that it wasn't gritty enough, but I kind of know what you mean as far as not being too gritty. And I also think that he quote unquote fell for it because he was he was at his lowest point, just like when he drove the car off the cliff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it kind of I was okay with it because I was like, he's at his lowest point. He wants a miracle. This doctor really does exist. You know what I'm saying? So he did his research on the doctor and, obviously was
Right.
dealing with the daughter. She was the corrupt one. So, I was okay with that. I put it this way. I think it was about as good as you could do with a 10th movie and bringing it back within, the first couple movies timeline. So, yeah. I really enjoyed it. I really did. It was a good theater experience for me.
What are y'all's favorite? What's your one favorite trap from Saw 10 from everybody?
Lady cutting off her leg. I think I was like, I would never ever do that. I would just sit there and die. I really would. I would not. I think I could even try to do this. I'd be like, oh, I'm trying, but to this, I was like, this lady didn't. Oh my god! Like, I don't know. I think the lead lady had to die. That was like the biggest mistake they made, and
Yes.
the whole thing with the kid, like, what? That was so odd. Like, no, hala, Carlos. I was like, what the what? Like,
No,
I
Hannah!
liked it. I am a sentimental person, so I do agree. It is very corny, but I liked it. I liked that the kid saved John too. I liked it. I bought it. I was full in. I get that it's trying to pull at my heartstrings, but it did. It pulled at my heartstrings. I
Saul
thought it was
Levin's going to be
adorable.
Costas Mandalore Hoffman versus Carlos. I'm predicting it right now. That's what's going to happen because
Maybe Hoffman and Strom did have a relationship before they died. That would be cute for me because that's really what I want.
Ah,
They're so cute together.
Oh
right.
God.
Yep.
What was your favorite trap night
You know,
in 10?
it probably was the lady with the leg and sawing it off.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, man, that it they and they didn't let you out of it either, man. They just went all the way.
Mm-mm.
So I thought that that was pretty
Mm-mm.
good. I thought that that was pretty good.
Yes.
The one with the radiation, that was kind of like okay, but I thought it was gonna kind of be a little bit more visually kind of like stimulating, you know. But the leg,
Sure.
that was the one. The one with the leg was the one.
Oof. And then the one where he has to do his brain surgery
Yes.
and the mask closes on him. I think that mask was definitely an homage to the guy who had the key under his eye, and if he didn't get the key in
Yes.
time, that spike mask closed on him. So that
Yep.
was real fun to see. We also see the plastic dividers that we saw in Saw 3 and in Spiral, and just so many homages in this one. Like y'all said, like this is a fan film, so it did get kind of silly because you're probably not going to be able to perform brain surgery on yourself. You're probably going to die at the incision of your skull, but who
Right.
cares? You know, that was a callback to Saw 3 as well, you know, with him having to go through that, Kramer having to go through that. And it, you know, I think was carried by, like you guys already have said, between, you know, John's and Amanda's relationship and just going back to the roots of the movie. For us, it was just just going back to the good old days, essentially, you
I
know.
love the
Yes.
But we
kidnapping
could have gotten
scene.
a little bloodier. I feel like, honestly, even though these were great traps and things, like the camera doesn't stay on the gore so much. But that's kind of what the franchise has done. But because we've seen art now and other torture porn movies that have come out, we're kind of spoiled and we want more. But I think it stayed true to itself and not showing every single second of the action that's going on when the gore moments come on screen, which I appreciate.
Hmm.
It's okay.
Agreed.
It's okay. I don't always need it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
I
tell
think
me, what are y'all's top 3 installments and your bottom 3 installments? Or maybe bottom 2. Bottom 2 and top 3. Real quick.
uh,
Anybody can go.
1,
John, yeah,
2,
go
and
for it.
4 would be my top 3. Jigsaw would be at the bottom, and probably Saw 3D would be those would be the worst two.
Okay.
Mm.
How about for you, Emma?
my favorites are Saw 1, Saw 2, and Saw 6. Jigsaw is the only one I really don't vibe with. I can watch it, but I pretty much like them all. And I'm going to mention this because I forgot to, and it's really awkward and it doesn't matter, but it is interesting. In the beginning of Saw 4, we saw John Kramer's complete dick and balls for no reason. Which was an interesting choice. You know, we see it from the side, like the shaft, and then they cover
Yeah.
him up, which makes me think they had a
Yeah.
conversation. They're like, we want to make it raw. This is your autopsy. He's like, I don't mind being naked. It's fine with me. And they're like, we don't want to
Or
make it too much though, so we'll cover your ass. But we've already seen it with the big difference, you know.
or maybe they
Yeah, that's
didn't
one thing
know,
I didn't
like,
need to
how
see in my
wide the
life.
shot was. Did they not know that it was that wide of a shot and that it wasn't gonna
Oh,
be
they knew
tighter,
because then we
maybe?
saw like in front, like we got 2
Yeah,
different
at his
angles
feet
on
where
it
he's
too.
laying down?
2
Yeah.
different
Oh,
angles.
Lord.
And
Mm.
so yeah, I really love the whole franchise. So
You don't have to say your bottom 2 if you don't want to say bottom 2,
it's just
'cause, yeah, it's
basically Jigsaw. I just really don't care for. That's it.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. How about for you, Knight?
Yeah, Jigsaw is at the bottom. I'd have to think about what else is with it. I mean, seven was well, nah, let's just go to the top. Okay. So
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
top,
The
yeah.
good stuff.
I love the original. Two was so much fun. And if I had to pick a third one, that's where it gets tough, man, because I love four, I love three, and I really enjoyed Saw X and six. Six was like really good. So it's hard to pick three, but I can definitely tell you one and two are up there because I just think, again, one was just so gritty, so raw, takes you on that journey. Nobody saw that ending coming, and I was like, "Wow." And then for me, the second film, like, ramped up everything. It was an amazing movie with Tobin Bell and, um, um, Donnie Wahlberg. I loved their interactions. That was like money. And I do think that was one thing about Saw X. It kind of brought some of that back because we got Tobin Bell back in the
Yeah,
movie front and center. So, but definitely one and two are at the top for me.
awesome. Well, to find out my top three and my bottom two, and where all the movies rank in my ranking, definitely tune into my ranking video on Halloween, which will hopefully be dropped on Halloween. That's my goal here. But yes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up so I can get prepared for my next live here. I just want to say thank you to my three guests. I appreciate y'all being here so much. And I hope to do this with each and every one of you all again sometime very soon on my channel as well as yours. Actually, Knight just dropped his latest interview video featuring me, and you can go check his channel out right now and check that out along with a bunch of other amazing content that he does. And definitely please check out John's latest short film. I'm going to add that to the description as soon as we go off the air. I loved it. You're going to love it. And
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to make your second movie. Yes, yes, yes. And Emma, it was so great meeting you for the first time in person online. I've been following you for a while, so I appreciate you doing this with me and being a part of my third annual Spooktober special. Definitely check out everybody's channel, those of you who are in the chat. And if you guys want to say one last thing, please feel free. I know, Night, you're here a little bit late, so go ahead and real quick tell us about your channel a little bit and what you're doing besides, the video that you just dropped the other day. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I just love talking about movies. A big focus on horror, obviously, old school stuff, new stuff. As you were saying, DeRay, I've had the joy of getting to interview you and obviously my boy John Grande as well, and much love. And I'm so proud of you, brother, for your movie. And I have to talk to you about that at some point that you know afterwards, so we can get some promo on that. But
Yeah.
I love talking to folks, so I've been doing a lot of interviews and stuff lately too, and live streaming and just yeah, just doing what I do. So
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I hope y'all have a good rest of your Sunday evening and a wonderful upcoming week. And peace, y'all.
Cool meeting you
Peace.
all. Bye. Unpleasant dreams.